What's up, all you homosexuals? It's Monday. Welcome back to the Rogue Room. How's it going? Well, you might not all be homosexuals. I don't know. I'm just assuming because this is generally a queer stream environment, so, you know. How's it going, folks? Welcome back to the Rogue Room. Guys, gals, NB pals, or other way around, non-binary pals, guys and gals. Which still puts women at the end of it. Misogyny. Patriarchy. How's it going? You've not received a single Snello. Welcome in, Haley. How you going? How are folks doing tonight? I know some of us here in New South Wales might be considering cracking open a bottle of bubbly to celebrate, kind of maybe, but we will get into tonight why it's kind of good, kind of bad that Gladys Berejiklian is resigning as the Premier of New South Wales. How's it going, folks? It's been a weekend. It's been a good weekend, actually. Well, relatively speaking, yeah. It's been a good weekend, aside from my feet hurting. But they're not hurting like they used to be, so that's a plus. I'm doing alright. It's been a very good weekend. Very, very good weekend. You might notice I've got some really cool earrings here that someone who's very, very cool and cute and awesome got for me. They are by Killstar. And they're swords, because I like swords. Anyway, why is my camera like not centered again? Is it? Yeah, it's centered. Okay, I don't know. I don't know what the dealio is with that, but anyway. We're going to talk Ozpol tonight. We're doing Australian politics all night, which is mainly going to be talking about the cabinet. I'm going to be talking about Gladys Berejiklian, John Barilaro, and Dominic Perrottet, which is awful and scary, and also a bit of queer stuff. Including something that cropped up on my my Twitter feed today, and every trans person on trans Twitter is making fun of it. But it's a news story from like back in March or May of this year, so it's not really recent or relevant, but it's still going to be fun to poke holes in because it's kind of an evergreen story, sadly. But we'll get into that very shortly. We got a couple of queer stories to start us off before we jump right into the Ozpol stuff. Anyway. Letting me know that I am based. Oh, I'm well aware. Trust me. I'm well aware of the fact that I am one of the most based streamers on this platform. This is clinking against my choker like crazy. Like, can you like ASMR? Anyways, wings on point. You could impale a man on them. I could. I kind of fucked up this one, and then I was just like, oh, okay, we're going big tonight, I suppose. Big wings, so big I want to take off. Anyways. When I was a little lad, whenever I wanted toys, Father always told me to do the happy dance. Now Father is dead, no more toys. Rip. Rip in peace. Anyway, shall we... What have you folks been up to? Tell me what you've been up to over the past couple of days. Since Friday. Because, you know, we finished Outer Wilds. Which is super fucking cool, man. It's like, I shouldn't say man. That's gendered. Super fucking cool, folks. We finished Outer Wilds, and now I'm mega keen to get into the DLC. I want to sink my teeth into that bitch like nothing else. You have no idea how much I want to play the DLC, but we're going to take at least a week off from Outer Wilds, because I probably can't afford to sink some more money into more games. Let me see, like, where's the store page for it? It's the DLC is where is it? That's the soundtrack. Where's Echoes of the Eye? It's $20 at the moment, $19.35. And I really want to get into it. What's in my cart at the moment? It's sitting in my cart right now, waiting for me to buy it. But yeah, that was really good. I really I love that game. If you've not played Outer Wilds, if you somehow missed my entire playthrough of it, which would have generally spoiled the whole thing. If you was cruising along for the ride, it would have spoiled the whole thing because it is a story-driven game. It is a heavily story-driven game. So if you were to have watched my playthrough, that would have basically spoiled the game for you. But still worth a playthrough, still very fun, still a tremendous experience. I highly recommend it. Can't wait to play DLC. But I think this Friday, what we're going to be doing on Friday. We're going to be looking at Euro Truck Simulator 2 with the steering wheel that I got. So anyway. Following on the collapse of the New South Wales coalition government, well, I hope it's good for us, the civilians. You know, yeah. We're going to talk some more politics on Friday with the Euro Truck Sim thing going on. Not if you were drunk and muting key bits, I suppose. Looper, you had 12 vials of blood drawn. Jesus Christ, you spent the weekend vegging out and recovering. Yeah, it sounds like you deserve it. Well, about that, yeah, it's not going to be good for us, honestly, and we'll get into why shortly. I'm honestly most terrified about the healthcare system, because there was a poll going around today. People are trying to get Medicare to cover transition-related surgeries. And I feel like, much as we would like that to become a reality, I feel like Medicare is going to skew completely in the opposite direction and cover no surgeries or medications in the foreseeable future, which would be shit. Anyway, there's been a pretty, as far as I can tell, there's been a pretty significant push to privatize Medicare in Australia for a while now, which is terrifying for us poors, you know. Anyway, wish your government would collapse. The thing that would suck about the government collapsing is we would lose a lot of creature comforts. So that's worth considering. Anyway, I just want a better government. I want things to be run better. Anyway, yeah, Gladys is gone. Gladys Berejiklian has resigned as of today, so has John Barilaro. And another member of the cabinet whom I can't recall. It's almost like a federal health minister, Greg Hunt, wants a US-style healthcare system since his maiden speech in 2002. But who's really keeping tabs? You are. I know that much, Reba. Yes, I am glad she's gone. Absolutely. She bungled fucking everything since she's been in her position. So, giving T-blockers a loan of like $100 is going to force a lot of trans people into a very dangerous position, which they don't care about, conveniently enough, of course. Why would the Australian government give a single solitary fuck about trans people? Anyway. Yeah, speaking of paws, you have a kitty climbing on you. Aww. Speaking of paws, when I think of paws, this is a weird thing that just came into mind. I feel like I was thinking like monsters with paws, like big, like werewolves. Werewolves have paws, right? They're monsters. I kind of feel like I've got. What really sucks is like with all my Soulsborne stuff, I don't have like a monster kind of thing. I would really like a monster that could either go there on my shelf or could go like here on my desk. You know, did they ever do like a beast from Bloodborne as a statue? I know there's a really cool posable hunter statue actually, and a Lady Maria, which I want like nothing else. Made cat femboys. Liberal governments be like, privatizing works great for the Americans. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Well, I got a monster. It's not exactly the one I was. That'll do. Whatever. It's not like she fucked around with $35.5 million of government money or something. There was a hand. I don't know what the deal was with the hand, but yeah. And there's a cat. There's a cat too. Okay. I got monster and I got a hand and a cat. The hand is gone, but I've got the monster at least. Smudge is actually a person? He may well be. He's one of those people that can transform into animals. Alright. Kitty, hello Ree, how you going? What you doing? Secretly an animorph. Smudge can bring monsters now. Yeah, he leaned in with the can of monster, and then he dashed out of sight for a second and dashed back in his cat form. But I think Smudge may be a bit gender fluid and can go from being a girl human to a boy cat or something. I don't know. He's a strange creature. I don't fully understand cats. I think they are some kind of eldritch being from beyond the cosmos, and they seek to control us in as many ways as they possibly can. They got us cleaning up their shit and feeding them, so they're off to a good start, honestly. Who knows how cats do gender? I do recall, I've mentioned this story before, that I was in another trans woman stream, and some contrarian in chat was referring to the fact it's like, oh, so you refer to your cat as a he. How do you know he's a he? And the reality of the situation is like, well, technically we don't, but they don't speak English. Like, it's for our convenience. We don't know how our cats identify. Technically speaking, the pronoun for any pet is it. Like, if you want to be pedantic about it, we call our cats he and she, yeah, based on a genital assumption, but they don't present gender to us in any specific way that we can understand. Nor can they understand the way we refer to them. It honestly is harmless to gender pets. Like, compared with gendering humans. You know, it's silly, it's dumb, it's a non-argument. He has got a very handsome goatee. My sister's cat, Jasper, has got a beauty spot. If you stick out your tongue, cats will sniff it. Will they really? I'm going to have to try this. I feel like he'd just either swipe me, which if he does that, I will personally hunt you down. And he'd either do that or he'd try to bite it. Anyway. Pronouns are an English thing anyway. Are there no pronouns in other languages? I feel like there's not. Are there no pronouns in other languages? The governor in Alabama that used... Well, I did hear about something in Alabama. And maybe we should start with this. Well, we got two stories here. We got two stories about... well, we got two stories about queer stuff. Specifically trans stuff, I think. Oh, no, one is just about woke gender identity, and the other one is about trans rights. But this story is from back in March of this year. I just didn't see it until it started making the rounds. Anyway. Did I hear the governor in Alabama used COVID relief money to fund the building of private prisons that she directly has ties to? No, I didn't, but I'd like to see a story on that if you got one. Cats are omnigendered. Some languages don't have them. Some languages have gendered chairs. Yeah, like I've heard of that. Like some languages, everything is gendered. I think it's German, everything's gendered, or something like that, or French. There are a couple of languages where, like, literally everything, the table gets a gender. You know, like it's wild. And then this honestly just leads into French's femme and masque. There we go. Honestly just like speaks to the whole concept of, you know, anyone who's like, oh, this gender identity stuff is wild, wacky nonsense that makes no sense. Then you just look at language in general. None of it makes any sense. It's designed to make life easier for some of us. The rest of us can just deal with it. I don't know. Different syntax. Some don't have pronouns. Some have more than 3 most people think of. And then there was that video about the English use of the singular they, them that we watched the other day. So like singular they, them predates stuff like he, him, and she, her. And of course it, its. I'm not 100% sure on the history of it, its. Which is, I don't know if that's necessarily like a new thing or not, but I mean, it doesn't shock me that some people do like being called it, its. It's comfortable for them in particular, so. To each their own. I don't know. Cat in Spanish is gato or gata. There we go. Cats are gendered. Are you gendered, Smudge? Are you gendered? Gendered cat? Here we go. What's this we got? Alabama governor signs bills to use COVID relief funds to build prisons, unshockingly. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed into law Friday several prison infrastructure bills that will use COVID relief funds to build 2 supersized prisons. Why? Toad, thank you. And by the way, Reaper, there you go. I'm not kissing the finger properly tonight because I'll ruin my lipstick, which looks awesome. I'm glad you like my look. And check out some dumb selfies of me at Instagram where I've actually posted tonight's look in a bit more detail so you can see it up close. If it's not going to load. Instagram just doesn't load. I don't know what the hell's wrong with my my browser, but like it's not like Facebook specific services. So Facebook itself and Instagram have a tendency to just fail to load images for some reason. I don't know what the problem is with this platform. I don't know what the problem is there. Anyway. Don't feel comfortable calling people it. You know, it feels literally objectifying. Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, some people prefer it as their pronoun. There's doe, for example. But yeah, like, I understand the perspective, but at the same time, like, if someone has it, its pronouns, I'm still going to respect that. I'm still going to respect their decision. Like, in some cases, they prefer to be called, or, yeah, I'm using they as like a group term here, not the singular they. But in some cases, those who use it, its pronouns genuinely do like the fact that it is objectifying. Or dehumanizing, perhaps. Believe in French masque trumps femme. My teacher complained, as an example, even if you had 9 women teachers, if one was a man, you would preface with the masculine identifier, not the feminine. Oh, okay. That's interesting. If someone wants to use it, its pronouns, you view it as a neo-pronoun adaptation of gender neutral. Which, yeah. This is my pronoun. Its name is Anna. See what I mean? Not really. I mean, yeah, I see what you mean, but... you know, plenty of people use it specifically in sexual contexts. Yeah. We're doing trans dear. I mean, as far as I know, Doe just uses its in general. Like, it's not even a, not even a specific situational thing. It just prefers it pronouns. Which works fine. I don't see a problem with it. Who wants to talk about big G-cup titties? By the way, hi Phage. Don't care if I understand it. I don't need to get it to respect it. Exactly. Like, that's the attitude. That's the attitude more people need to take with this kind of thing. It's
Thank
like,
you for
oh yeah,
continuing your membership. I'm a chunky monkey and I can dance like a ham.
Thank you, Yarrow, for the tier 1 resub for 9 months. Currently on a 9-month streak. Here's a fun thing. We were going to talk briefly about the Twitch boost feature, which if you use that boost feature on my channel, if it comes to my channel and you use the boost feature, I will just ban you from my channel. But that being said, there is another new thing that it seems like Twitch is experimenting with. I don't know if Twitch themselves actually posted this or if another account posted this. But it seems as though Twitch is experimenting with a thing with regards to resubs that will show like little fun facts about the person who resubs. Like it'll show they've been subbed for like, say it says currently on a 9-month streak, or they've been following for this much time, or whatever else. Which is a neat little thing. Doesn't really contribute much, but it'd be a neat little factor. Anyway. No, I do not want the boosts, because none of that money is coming to me. Is the thing. None of that money is going to me. And Twitch already takes 50% of our subs as it stands, and they already overcharge you for bits. So, no. If you are going to support the streamer, put the money in my pocket. Don't put it in Twitch's. Because that's really what it boils down to. Is like, if someone pays $5 to boost my channel when they could just spend that $5 to sub to my channel, I get far more benefit from, and again, this is another thing with the whole, I would prefer you sub off Twitch in the first place. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. Oh, look, this person's called Speedrun Bands with Truth. Oh, fucking mobile. Congratulations. Your message got cut off by mobile letter limits. Don't bother banning them. They seem like a dickhead. Make you famous and famous you make cash. That's not how that works. We know that's not how it's going to work. The Twitch boost system is only going to benefit those who've already got tons of money or who've already got tons of viewers who've got tons of money. Like, it's not going to benefit the smaller streamers who've got smaller audiences, because their smaller audiences are probably not going to bother using that feature. Or if they do, it's not going to have anywhere near as much of an impact as it would with a bigger streamer. So it's a functionally useless feature. And yeah, the definition of paying you with exposure, literally yes. I abhor the entire feature. Do not use it on my channel if it comes to this channel. And the thing is, it was originally a concept they were thinking of with channel points, which is less of an issue. I have less of a problem with that, but yeah, given they're now going this route of basically, you have two options. You could either sub to the streamer, you could share bits to the streamer, 3 options, or you could boost them. So you could sub, you could share, which gives money to the streamer. That supports them financially. That's far more beneficial. Or you could pay to boost their channel, which might have no impact whatsoever. So maybe they get recommended, but any of those viewers that come in through the recommendations might not stick around, might not sub, might not share, etc. It's worthless. It's meaningless. It's a scam. It's basically just a scam to take more money away from the streamers themselves and put it in Twitch's pockets. There's no benefit to the streamer for doing this thing. Unless, of course, you're already a big streamer and you've already got tons of money and you've already got tons of people who are willing to put forth the money for the boost. It's not useful. Wait. It sucks how Twitch does stuff to pretty much screw over small streamers. Well, yeah, exactly, they do. Yeah, I am once again asking for your financial support. But if you're going to do it in such a way that I'm actually going to get the money. It's like, Here's an example. It's like how often I get emails, and I tweeted about this the other day. Of what did I say specifically? Something to the effect of I received an email saying they wanted me, right? This game company wanted me to play their game on stream, complete challenges in the game to unlock keys that I could give away to you folks, right? What was never specified in the email, but I inferred, was that I'd have to buy the game first. So I'd be doing a promotion and buying into it, under the pretense that I might be able to get keys to give away to the audience. What actual benefit do I get from that? That's asking me to do labor for free. Not going to happen. Anyway. I think it's barely okay if there is a cutoff point for the larger streamers. You know that's not going to happen, though. But yeah, generally speaking, I don't support any of those things. They're not going to help anyone. Generally speaking. Is streaming free? Well, there is, generally speaking, you have to have some kind of technology to stream in the first place, so no. Free in the sense that you can make a Twitch account and stream off whatever existing tech you've already got. If you've got a PC or if you've got a console, you can stream off that. Like, you don't have to pay Twitch to stream in the first place. Do not give them ideas, please. But anyway, 400 IQ email. I know, it was dumb. The moment I saw it, I complained about it on Twitter instead, and I was like, I'm not going to respond to this. This is an insult. This is literally insulting. But anyway, yeah. There's just, honestly, there's no way that the boost system is going to have a net positive for any of the small streamers who are currently yapping on about it on the platform. Who pays for the data? Well, there is still money that goes to Twitch via subs and bits. And ads, of course. Ad revenue. How do small streamers break past the sub 10 viewer level when they have genuinely good and polished content? Network is the main thing. They have to create a network of not just fellow streamers, but people who are potential viewers. They have to put in the effort to find people who would engage with their content, who would find their content interesting, and use the existing discoverability options. I just do not see this boost option being beneficial to anyone. It's a waste of money. Hello, Silky. Ran into Pocky, so your brain will shut down in a moment for 45 seconds. Rip. Yeah, so Twitch pays for the data, or Amazon or whatever. And, yeah, technically everyone is a customer and a streamer on Twitch. Like, I don't pay for anything on Twitch. I don't subscribe to anyone. I don't buy bits or anything like that. Because I personally just don't like the idea of putting money in Amazon's pockets, even if I am a streamer on the platform, which means inevitably people are going to sub or cheer at this level. And some of that money is going to go to the platform anyway. I can't avoid that as much as I go for the whole sub off Twitch thing. No mega spell command. Oh, that's a rip. Well, I got rid of the like way back when I got rid of the what's it called, the user specific commands. Like if you were a subscriber to the channel, you used to have a sound effect command you could play, which would interrupt my stream and would really throw me off my game or whatever it was that I was doing. And the majority of the time, those were what's the phrase? Those were like, people would pick like DMCA-able sound effects. So I'm glad that like I got rid of that whole thing before the DMCA thing started making the rounds. Because honestly, that was like pretty bad. That was anyway. Here's what you do, right? If you want to get rich on Twitch, you take the videos of the big titty bikini girls, you put it in a corner of the stream and go to sleep. You put the video of the big titty girls on loop, make the money. Oh, goodness. It's far too much effort to maintain those things, honestly. I don't know how some people do it. I really don't. I don't envy them, but you know. I suppose like it's a different, depending on what the command is. What would the command be for like for user commands? Because it's not going to be sound effects. You can forget that shit right now. I'm not giving my audience the capacity to interrupt my stream with sound effects more than just subscribing or cheering. You pay for that privilege. Anyway, why stream on Twitch? Majority reason that I think a lot of people do choose to stream on Twitch is it is arguably I think a lot of people who stream on this platform do see it as the streamer platform. So if anyone thinks of live streaming, generally video games, let's put it as succinctly as possible. Generally speaking, they're going to think of Twitch. They've probably heard of Twitch. You can stream on YouTube, you can stream on Facebook, and there are other services. But yeah, like Yara said, it's basically a semi-monopoly. And to that end, much as we will complain and bitch about all the features that Twitch keeps giving us that we don't want, like the boost thing, which is being tested, not implemented yet, but it's being tested on a small group of streamers. Twitch still has the majority of the features streamers want, right? Like there's a lot that Twitch has going on that makes it arguably the best platform for it, for all of its pitfalls. Hello, Senju. How you going? Got mildly annoyed at sub trains because they would interrupt your interview, but you like money. That's fair. That's fair. And I mean, you can still, like, this is the thing, is you can turn hype trains off if you want, I think. I'm pretty sure you can turn off hype trains. So I want to make it better rather than leave, which is exactly what many of the people who've been arguing for Twitch to do something about the hate raids, for example, they've been going out of their way to try and say, we need to put a stop to all this hate speech going on the platform because Twitch is still the best streaming platform that we have as it stands right now. So that's why most of us stream here. Facebook has a foothold in non-English speaking countries. There's really hardly any competition. Yeah, as it stands right now, the majority of English speaking streamers are going to come to Twitch, and even some in other platforms. Who's streaming on Facebook? Like, who goes, hey guys, I'm going to be streaming on Facebook tomorrow? People do it. People have actually got careers on there. But it's weird. More of why stream, because I enjoy it, and also it's basically my job. I agree with you there, Ree. Rip Mixer, because Mixer was actually solid competition to Twitch in a lot of ways. They just didn't have the viewership and didn't have the revenue to keep the platform afloat. But Mixer was genuinely the next best thing. And if they'd given it more time and sunk more of their money into making the platform as good as they possibly could, it could have been a genuine neck and neck battle for the best streaming platform. And that kind of competition would have driven Twitch to improve in drastic ways. Instead, basically what happened is that Twitch just crushed Mixer, and Mixer sold to Facebook, and now there's not really much going on there. YouTube could be something in a few years, yeah, but YouTube is run by Google, and I don't feel like Google has much of an interest in making that platform any better, really. Google had a social network called Orkut for like a decade that was huge in Brazil and nowhere else on Earth. It's kind of interesting to think about that. Like, given that we live in the internet age where everything is so connected all of the time, and yet there are completely different social networks in other countries that we're just not aware of at all, and they're not aware of ours. It's wild. Seems like it's been a battle of survival because Twitch is still unprofitable. If I recall correctly, yeah. Twitch is, I haven't checked, but, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if Twitch is still unprofitable. Anyway. Would have thought YouTube would be bigger, but I think they're just, yeah, YouTube is still just the video platform, generally speaking. They're not particularly fussed about YouTube streaming. So, it's there, and it works. Like, I would say, generally, YouTube streaming would probably benefit those who've got an existing YouTube following. But, I don't know. Twitch's discoverability is garbage, but YouTube's is even worse for streams, but otherwise it seems like it may overtake if they can iron out the kinks. I mean, that's the thing too, is like, yeah, like, I don't know how you find YouTube streams. So, like, let's just say my type of content, this discussion-focused content, doesn't really have a streaming base on YouTube. You can go to YouTube Gaming and find gaming streams. But if you were, and like, generally you're going to find live streams of streamers you're already subscribed to on YouTube, sorry. So if you go onto your YouTube front page and someone is streaming, you'll see the live thumbnail there, and you can click on that. But there doesn't seem like there's a dedicated streaming category on YouTube, which would go a huge way to making that platform more accessible to streamers. Yahoo is still big in Japan. eBay and social media, Jesus. A woman streaming on Facebook is just trying to live life, right? She ain't trying to steal anybody's wife. Shouldn't make fun of them even if they are literal boomer guns who still use Facebook. Damn it. YouTube had potential, but the fact the algorithm is so all over the place with its normal content, I don't think it could handle streams. That is true. It does seem like YouTube has got quite a few algorithmic issues, generally with regards to pushing it. I'm just going to say it. I think YouTube still has an issue with trying to push people right. An algorithmic issue with trying to push people down the alt-right pipeline. There is still the specific problem of certain types of content that are not related to right-wing politics having recommendations towards right-wing commentators at the end of their videos, which is a different kind of issue. Really, it's not specifically what we're talking about, but you know, that's still a thing. Anyway, YouTube traditionally is supposed to be better for finding people, but worse for getting any money, because it's always seemed terrible for both. The demographics for Facebook are older people, generally speaking. It does make one wonder. I mean, we should be thankful for what we've got with regards to Twitch and Facebook and YouTube and all of that. Well, not Facebook, Twitch and YouTube. But yeah, they are generally unprofitable platforms, which makes one wonder why they stay afloat. You would think they would be trying their best to keep those platforms going. There must be some incentive to keep them running, given that they're not actually turning a profit. Excuse me. YouTube would probably just still stick to trying to get TV personalities and shows on their platforms, which has sadly worked really well for them. There are a lot of people who... remember when it was a big deal that Will Smith made a YouTube channel? Like, and I think everyone lost their shit. It's like, oh no, this is for homegrown content. And now it's like it's completely not shocking by any stretch of the imagination. YouTube is very profitable, you think? Will Smith who? Creators seem to use in-video advertising. Yeah, a lot of the creators I follow on YouTube, generally speaking, tend to gravitate towards sponsorship deals rather than ads. To give an example, Australian example, Murdoch's The Australian has been run at a loss for years now, all for political control. Well, that could be it, really, isn't it? Like, Twitch runs at a loss because they know they're the streaming platform, they know they have the monopoly. YouTube would probably be the same. You know they have the monopoly, they know no other platform could compete with them, so they stay afloat on that basis alone. And it's not like Google has any shortage of money anyway. Like, the money that they might lose on YouTube, they'd probably gain back on other avenues. You were actually tinkering around with the idea for a little while. Made a new YouTube account, watched a few gaming and Warhammer videos, you know, like the Act Man and all. And they recommended me, I'm not kidding, Ben Shapiro. Exactly. My wife can't get a WAP, but that's only because she's not ill. Well, yeah, that's the thing. And this is what really annoyed me about recently, the discussion around people who had an alt-right phase. And I get the perspective, don't get me wrong, of it was largely POC who had umbrage with this issue, and I think there were a few non-POC people as well commenting on this specific thing of, I never had an alt-right phase, and yada yada yada. I didn't fall down the alt-right pipeline. I was a gamer when I was a kid and I didn't turn out alt-right. I think people were sort of missing the point that there are some people who are not specifically right-wing or alt-right when they go into watching COD montages or when they go into gaming or any of that kind of stuff. But a lot of the ideas pushed by people like Crowder and Peterson and Shapiro and all of them are regrettably persuasive to laymen who had never really given politics much thought. So as a result, you turned out all right but never all right. So as a result, there are a lot of people who look at that content, and because they've never thought very deeply about those subjects, it was easy to coerce those people into that toxic train of thought and lead them down this path of like, this is logical, this is rational, this is reasonable, despite the fact that it's clearly not. But there were a ton of people in that whole discussion about the alt-right phase thing recently on Twitter mainly, who were just like, dismissing the entire discussion, saying, oh, I was never in that toxic mind space, blah-de-blah-de-blah, whatever. Completely unforgiving attitudes for people who are effectively coerced into a mindset they really didn't have much control over, because the algorithms of things like YouTube and the communities in games like Call of Duty and all that facilitate those kind of mindsets. So yes, there is absolutely an alt-right community in gaming. There is a white supremacist community in gaming that recruits people who are not generally going to be thinking about those things, but there's definitely a community for it. And to dismiss that, to dismiss people who are generally otherwise innocent, and think that there's no salvation for them is kind of ridiculous. Yeah, there's definitely a pipeline. Anyway, how did we get onto this? This is a different topic anyway. Speaking of alt-right phase, I saw a group in the UK doing their part to break up the Muslim patrols in the UK years back now, but then they started Christian nationalist points, and I'm like, yep, I'm out. It was the same with the atheist thing. Like, I was really deeply into the atheist community on Reddit back in 2020, I think I mentioned anywhere from between 2010 and 2014, roughly. Right when that anti-SJW fad started really cropping up on major internet circles like Reddit, 4chan, etc. Well, it was already big on 4chan to begin with, but, you know, being on the atheist
Thank you for
subreddit,
continuing your
yeah,
membership. Oof, nothing like getting a random gift sub to a channel you hate.
What, Juniper? Thank you for the resub for 5 months. Goodness me. Smudge, what are you doing? What do you do? Anyway, my cat's doing something. What was I going to say? Yeah, thank you for the resub. Where were we? Jordan, Pipeline. We were talking about it. Yeah, the atheist thing. So, the atheism thing was interesting because the main discussion point on the atheism subreddit was, let's debunk all the religious diatribe that's out there. And because that, and don't get me wrong, I am still an atheist. I'm still a non-theistic person. I'm still a secular person. But what value is there really in making your entire personality about the fact that you're not religious? Really? Because that's what it became. That's what that entire community became, was like, well, my entire personality is, I am enlightened, intelligent atheist, Letips Fedora. And they had no other personality beyond that. So, naturally speaking, they went down the route of, like, those communities began to intersect with other communities that were relatively toxic. And the whole point of the atheism subreddit was to find the most outrageous examples of religion, post them on the subreddit, and mock the shit out of them. Like, that was the primary focus. Is just, let's point out how bad these guys are, and that's our entire worldview of anyone religious, right? And I will concede that some of that mindset still lingers in the back of my head, and I'm still trying to overcome that. I realize actively that not every religious person is like the Westboro Baptist Church. But that was the main focus there, and that led me, and I dare say many other people, to subreddits like Fat People Hate, and like Cringetopia, I think it was, and Tumblr in Action, and all these other anti-SJW subreddits, all these basically alt-right subreddits, which I'm glad I eventually drifted from that, because it could have gotten worse. On the surface level, it was just, haha, look at these silly, wacky blue hairs, or look at Tess Holiday being very large, or something like that. It was all just mockery. It was all just derision. This act of supremacy. Which, what does that tell you? And then, over time, I gradually drifted away, but it wouldn't shock me that there were many other people that kept drifting. Because that behavior becomes normalized. You know, you stay in those communities long enough, that behavior becomes normalized in your head. And you start to think, there's nothing wrong with what I'm doing. Like, this is Isaac Butterfield's entire YouTube channel, pretty much. He just finds a group, targets it, points out the most extreme examples, and mocks them, and his audience laps it up. Right? Anyway, uncles are like this. They think they're so intelligent for being atheists. Yeah, there's nothing intellectual about being secular. There's nothing at all. Don't shame Ben Shapiro for liking dry pussy. It's just his preference. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Looper. Zealotry is an act not exclusive to religion. Precisely. Cringetopia. What's wrong with Cringetopia? I thought the subreddit got banned. I didn't realize it was still there. Is it still there? That was definitely an alt-right subreddit. They were posting transphobic shit constantly. And there were a lot of the people on that subreddit generally crossed over with, the Fat People Hate one, which eventually got banned. Tumblr in Action, I think, got banned. I think there's one right now called Social Justice in Action, which is the same thing. Generally speaking, yeah. Hello, Dr. Trophonius. How you doing? Welcome in. This is why I've enjoyed listening to people on topic who play the ball, not the player, if you follow. I'm describing Fox News, probably, generally. Because all it boils down to is it's easy to poke fun at something that you don't understand. Because whether we want to concede this to ourselves or not, I promise we'll get into one of the topics. We're going to discuss Ozpol, and we're going to discuss some queer stuff soon. But anyway, one of the let me think for a second. Yeah, like whether you want to concede this point or not, generally speaking, we are all raised with a specific set of values, especially, here in the Western world. Whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of our values are informed by Christian ideas, generally speaking. That being like the virtues of the family and let's say like the nuclear family, mum, dad, kids. Marriage is normal. Getting into a successful career is considered normal. Any of those kind of like young boys going into sports is normal. Girls, I'm honestly not sure what the expectation is of girls other than preening them to become mothers one day. And whether we want to think like whether you were raised in a secular household or a religious household or not, at least in the Western world, those values still apply and are still ingrained in our heads. So, like, I was raised in an atheist household. My mother was never religious. I think my grandmother might have been. But generally speaking, everyone from, like, my grandmother down has never had any attachment to religion specifically. There's never been any talk about it. We've never said grace at dinner or whatever. But still, my mother did marry, originally, divorced. And then, like, the same thing sort of applies across the board. Monogamy is considered normal. What else is there? Like, there's a whole lot of, there's a whole lot to unpack there, really. But, like, once you start looking at, like, a bunch of different factors throughout my life, you're like, this is effectively what the Christian doctrine wants, is these specific things. Even if it wasn't traditional, 100%. But still, my parents were married for a time. They did have kids. They were effectively a nuclear family. But anyway, and to that end, again, yeah, whether you're in a religious household or not, you are raised with a pretty specific set of values, to the point where anyone who breaches those values and goes beyond that, it's very easy, especially in a society that still values bullying, essentially. It's very easy to poke fun at things that don't fit with the worldview you were raised in. Anyway. Asexual, biromantic, want to date, just no sex. That's completely understandable. Congratulations on coming out, by the way. You didn't poke fun of things you didn't understand. You just grew depressed and... I mean, yeah. Where were we? It's an interesting time we live in. The opinion of what is normal and is expected is up for debate, which is good. We should be able to debate what is normal. We should be able to discuss and change what normal is. Even if you're in a non-religious household, the shitty essentialist Judeo-Christian values still constitute a background radiation. Pretty much. Yeah, you've summed it up. Excuse me. And my dad got married for the third time yesterday. And, like, this is the thing, whether we want to admit it or not, a lot of our policy is informed by religious ideas. So, for example, if you get married, if you have a husband or wife, if you have a spouse, let's put it that way, if you have a spouse, and you get deathly ill, your spouse is allowed to visit you in the hospital, right? Or something like that. Like if you're in an emergency situation, your spouse is one of those people who is considered immediate family and can then thus visit you in the hospital. If you're just in a long-term relationship with someone, that doesn't apply. So, yeah, it's kind of startling. And as a result, like coming back to the alt-right thing before, we come back around to how many, let's just say, it seems like the alt-right, there are women in the alt-right, of course, but it seems like the majority of the target audience of the alt-right pipeline is young boys, right? Teenage boys. And given that they are generally raised in a certain upbringing, people like Peterson, Shapiro, etc. tend to attract those boys as an audience with their ideas. Because, again, it comes back around to that thing of they're mocking something or they're choosing to target something and criticize it under the basis that it doesn't fit their perception of what normal is. So, yeah. Belgium secularized rapidly. It's no longer cool to go to church, but those Catholic values are still deeply ingrained. We're a progressive country in most respects, but we definitely have some baggage. That's understandable. De facto rights grant the same rights as married couples, but that's generally state by state and more difficult to prove. Why is my best friend not allowed to visit me in hospital if I get hit by a car? True. Anyway, they have the right of executor. Okay. Let's just say that we still have plenty of churches and religious schools in the USA. Yeah. It honestly astounds me. Like, again, coming back to my childhood, it's like I look at all of the only thing that stands out to me I generally recall my childhood being secular. The only time I recall it not being specifically secular was in primary school for a brief period and high school for a brief period, where they did have religious studies classes. And I was in the class that didn't have to study those. So I basically got a free period. I got an hour off to do whatever. I think the secular class was just like do arts and crafts or whatever. I don't fucking know. Teacher was just like, listen, kids, whatever. Just do whatever. I don't know. I never had a teacher that sounded like a guy from Brooklyn, but anyway. But yeah, like it's wild to me to look back on my childhood and see how detached from religion it was, aside from knowing that my friend and his family were religious and knowing that religion existed and that people went to church. And I look back at it and I'm like, most of the institutions I engaged with were never strictly religious. I didn't really even enter a church till I was in my late teens, and that was because I was into a girl, and turns out she wasn't into me, so anyway. Even have religious hospitals, Jesus Christ. Your childhood was practically nothing but religion, goodness me. I can only imagine, well actually it's kind of a lie. My childhood wasn't completely secular. There was a brief period where my auntie tried to indoctrinate my sister and I into the Baha'i faith. Which even back then, I was looking at that and it's like I had fun being there with my cousins and we were singing songs and doing little drawings and stuff. But I was like, I don't believe in any of this shit they're teaching us. Like the whole time through, I was just like, this is nonsense. I think it's because Jordan, God of Lobster fucking Peterson, is very almost father-like figure. And I think that a lot of men in general are looking for a father figure. True. Let's just say that like there's a lot of lost boys out there, basically. Whether they have fathers or father figures in general or not, they do tend to gravitate towards masculine figures who can fill in the role of dad. When, like, let's be honest with ourselves. I think in this day and age, you've got a few options with dads. You could have a really involved dad. You could. And like in this day and age, you've got, with regards to parenting, either both of your parents are going to be working full time, if you're a kid born, let's just say after the year 2000, 1995-ish, whatever. Chances are both of your parents are going to be working at least full time or part time, or one of them will be full time, the other might be stay at home, or one of them might be absent. There are other options, but just generally speaking, if we stick to the nuclear family model, and I dare say, I don't have any facts to back this up, I don't have any science to back this up. There are a lot more working women these days, but I dare say there are a significant number of men who are just not present. They are working full-time, probably overtime, maybe in excess of 60, 80 hours a week in some cases. And if they're not working that many hours, they'll be working long hours, get home, probably don't want to do a whole lot of parenting at that point. So what that results in is you've got exhausted dad sitting on the couch watching the news, the footy, his favorite sitcom, whatever, while his son is sort of in his room playing video games, chatting to his friends on Discord, I suppose, or whatever. Bit detached. Doesn't really have that connection, and as a result, gravitates towards certain entertainers. And that's where they find resources like Peterson and Shapiro. How do you fix that? Fucks me, I have no idea. Here we go. There's a flex for you. And I was one of those kids who didn't have a father figure, really. Like, my dad was absent since I was a kid. So, generally. Not 100% absent. There you go. Poll. Here's a poll. This will be a contrarian one. Hello, Ziwa. How you doing? I am personally firmly of the belief there is no God. Okay? And I don't know. I don't see that. There's nothing that can change my mind on that. We can redeem flexes? Yes, yeah, you can do that. Simulation? I am quite a fan of the simulation theory, but, Leland fucking Jin. Who's that? I don't know who that is. Now there are lost boys. Now them lost boys are now lost girls and vice versa. It reminds me of the meme about like 20 years ago. a bunch of boys were going into the cinema to see The Matrix, and now 20 years later, those same girls are going into the movies to see The Matrix. Listen, T, I don't know everyone, okay? I literally, like, this is wild. Why are you gatekeeping if I don't... Oh, that Lee Lin Chin, okay. I'll give you that one. I did know who she is. That took me a second. I've not seen Squid Game. Okay, yeah, you got me there. Okay. But I will consider it's kind of wild that some people are like, you don't know who this person is? It's like, I don't know everyone. There's like 7 billion people on this planet. Anyway. There is only Cthulhu, which... Wouldn't Cthulhu technically count as a god, depending on your definition? I don't know. Want to believe you're SBNR because you want to be a witch, but you are the most unspiritual person you know. You just want your tarot cards to talk to you. I mean, that's a whole thing. This is the thing. I don't know enough about Wiccanism to be able to discuss it at length. The main thing is I'm a skeptic. I am a secular skeptical person. So any kind of spirituality leaves me at the mercy of there's probably some rational, logical explanation for this. Which is kind of weird considering, you know, my gender identity is something that's very wild and wacky and nonsense. Almost 8 billion. Oh, great. We're winning. There we go. We got no or I don't know as the winning options. Isn't the only witchcraft but a mishmash. Okay, there we go. Wicca is the one I'm most familiar with. And even then, I'm not intimately familiar with it. Have a bit of a contrived view of it for your religion. I believe he exists, but he has long since backed off because our free will is supposed to be for us to run our own shit as much as possible. And we see how that's turned out for us, don't we? If we were in a simulation, would the people running the simulation be gods? Well, I mean, technically, like, think about, like, do you consider yourself a god when you play The Sims? Right? There's an interesting thought. Given that you are in as much control as possible over the lives of those people, you could do virtually anything. But are you a god in that instance? You know, you have full control to a point. Consider yourself a god at all times. Well, I mean... Fair. Yeah. I can't imagine there are many POC in Australia who migrated there. Oh, I guess that there are a few. I wouldn't have specific numbers, but... How many Indigenous people are there in Australia? Not as many as there probably should be, to be honest. There were definite genocides. I'm not the person to ask on that front, though, honestly. Cynical atheist and you still love your tarot cards. Doesn't have to be a supernatural practice. More about a mindfulness or storytelling one, which is fair. We are still Catholic. You got to be a little creative to be LGBT and Catholic, but it's so ingrained in your background you couldn't shake it off even if you wanted. Here's the thought, Dr. Trophonius. Does it require the creativity to be LGBT and Catholic, or is it that... Thank you for the head pats, Silky. Is it more that perhaps modern Catholicism has taught you to believe it requires you to be a bit creative to be LGBT and Catholic? You know, there are a lot of passages that have been misconstrued in the Bible to suggest they are homophobic or queerphobic in general. But it doesn't strike me as a book based on the teachings of Jesus Christ should be specifically a queerphobic text. Like, it doesn't make any sense. You missed the poll results. We got no or I don't know, both at 44%, 7 votes each. Yeah, it's a mix between I don't know and no. Traditionally, always been very atheist, apart from the one time your friend tricked me into becoming a Christian puppeteer for a few months by telling me they had Xbox. Well, but I want to get more into magic and spirituality stuff just to enjoy life a bit more, which is fair. Aboriginal people were here for tens of thousands of years before Europeans were, and we have a lot of immigrants from China and Vietnam, and most recently from Lebanon and the Middle East. There we go. There's a cute human being sitting opposite you, currently in a cafe. Ooh, a cute human being. 2 said yes. Okay. Yeah, well, we did have like 2 people say yes. Bad news for God. This is the thing, though. Like, whether this is what's amusing is whenever we have the religion discussion. Is it because I'm wearing pentagrams? Anyway, whenever we have the religion discussion, it's always amusing when people say that we're somehow disappointing God or disappointing Jesus by being queer or whatever it is. And it's like, if this is some omnipotent, omnipresent, all-knowing entity, and he disapproved, wouldn't he just strike every queer person down in an instant? How How are queer people existing, pissing off a deity that could just wipe us out for no, like, with a snap of his fingers? If he was really that upset with us, how are we still here? Kind of ridiculous. Kind of a... Well, I refer to he because, again, the whole religious indoctrination thing, whether we want to admit it or not, those ideas are still ingrained in my head thanks to generally Christian-informed upbringing, whether or not I was actually raised Christian, which I was not. Necronomicon, very fucking based, agreed. Hell is real and we're in it. Well, I mean, we have a little bit of a reprieve thanks to Gladys Berejiklian resigning, whatever. Still very hellish here, though. Still not great. The Bible was written by a bunch of dudes, not by God, precisely. And what hugely amuses me is the fact that all the teachings of Jesus, all the texts about Jesus were written like 70 years after he died. Supposedly died. Mother Nature is goddess. I could be a goddess. Yeah. Has this become an atheist stream now? Well, technically it always was. But we're at this discussion now. Hellish because it was 28 fucking degrees. It was warm today. Yeah. Trying to follow the text people use as the basis of God made me feel like I was wrong for existing. Now I live out of spite to piss off so-called God, which is the point for a lot of people. I find like there are a lot of people who I think either turn atheist or come out of the closet or who do any number of things. Specifically because the religious doctrine of the modern day, by the way, Ree, there you go. The modern Christian expectation in Western society still harbors a great resentment for the undesirables. And that's not just queer folks. That is, honestly, women are considered undesirables. Anyone disabled is considered undesirable. What else is there? People of color, which is wild because Jesus was a brown man from the Middle East. But there's still a lot of racism baked into... Like, it's not necessarily that the religion itself has racist undertones, but those who are in control of religious institutions generally tend to be racist and justify their racism with religious texts, which is wild to me. Like, there was that video we watched of Solace's that sort of touched on these ideas about how religion has taken concepts and twisted them over time, and used the very persuasive indoctrinating method of religious institutions to turn people into pretty vile individuals. And the reason that they don't realize that they are being detestable with their opinions and thoughts and all of this is because they genuinely believe the things that they are doing or the things that they are thinking are part of some greater good, They don't even have one specific God. In the Old Testament, they have 8 who meet with Yahweh in an office type meetings to discuss how they're going to do the flood. Like, that's actually something they do in the Old Testament. I really need to read the Old Testament. I probably wouldn't enjoy it, but I should read it. A rabbi once blew my mind by saying, atheists teach a lesson no religion can, that we should not define morality by faith, but by empathy and understanding. That's the thing, right? Don't discuss my religion with other religious people because they make it weird. They make me not want to believe. That's understandable. Pope recently said trans people would lead to the end of humanity. Wait, really? I thought the current Pope was kind of cool. What the hell, man? That's not good. That's not poggers. That's very not poggers. Not surprising, though. The greater good. Greater good. Exactly. Yeah, we've turned this into a religious stream at this point. I like to believe I don't need to earn the afterlife, but I've earned it by simply existing, which was a very early branch of Christianity that got quenched early. Yeah, exactly. It's not very Pope champ. Fuck. Okay, so the point. This is an interesting point to make, which ties in to, honestly, you could just look at this as an extension of the capitalistic status quo. Homelessness, for example, poverty in general, exist as a threat to those who've already kind of made it, or those who have an avenue, those who have the privilege to make it, those who have the privilege to be working in a good, stable job. They are under the threat of, if you don't perform well enough in that job, if you don't maintain your status, or if you don't go into working in general in the first place, this is what awaits you on Earth itself. People will look at the homeless, the impoverished, the hungry, the sick. Like, this is why private healthcare is a thing, because it treats the idea of having healthcare as something you need to have a job to deserve. Right, and it's the same thing with religion. Like, unless you are following these strict tenets about religion, you will suffer eternal hellfire and damnation and torture for eternity and yada yada yada. But they already have an example of that in the world as it stands right now. The fact that we just absolutely mistreat homeless people, or anyone who doesn't. Well, I suppose, like I mentioned before, the homeless, the sick, the elderly. Even aging is seen as this thing that many people are afraid of, simply because if you are an old person who doesn't have kids to take care of you, or hasn't saved up with like a massive retirement fund over your life, we see people suffering who have lived 70, 80, 90 years on this earth. They can't take care of themselves these days, but are they're left as this undesirable status, which is something that awaits all of us as being old. We're all going to grow old. Well, unless you die before then, but, You're going to head off for lunch radio, Dr. Trophonius. Thank you for hanging out tonight. The new Pope said poppers are okay. Welcome back, Reaper. It's complicated. Okay, let's have a look. Pope Francis and homosexuality. Okay, let's have a look. Transgender issues. Okay, Pope Francis supports transgender Catholics in the inclusion in the church, but calls gender transitioning a sin and strongly criticizes gender theory, comparing it to nuclear arms. Okay. On the 2nd of October 2016, Pope Francis spoke in favor of pastoral care for and including transgender Catholics in the church, stating priests should accompany them spiritually and that they should never be turned away even if they have undergone sex transition and sex reassignment operations. He spoke out against gender theory, the idea that denies the difference and reciprocity in nature of a man and a woman, and envisages a society without sexual differences, thereby eliminating the anthropological basis for family. It's always about the family. Excuse me. He referred to it as ideological colonization. This is the thing. Colonization is the reason we have such a rigid gender binary to begin with. And said it was a threat to traditional marriage and destructive to children, of course. New Ways Ministry and Dignity USA, two dissenting LGBT Catholic advocacy groups, both spoke out against Pope Francis' statements regarding gender identity, calling it dangerous ignorance of the issue, which it is. Someone of his level of influence is probably the reason we have this shit. Anyway, Francis once held an audience with a Spanish trans man who had transitioned from female to male and his wife. Pope Francis in April 2020 was also welcoming and assisting Latin American trans prostitutes who because of COVID-19, I read that as who had died, no longer had customers on the street. In August 2020, Pope Francis encouraged the Argentinian Carmelite nun Sister Monica Astorga Cremona, who opened a safe home for trans women despite the opposition to her diocesan community, described as the first permanent residence in the world dedicated to vulnerable transgender people. He reportedly told her that transgender people are the lepers of today. Good Lord. Francis also sent a handwritten note to Cremona. God, who didn't attend seminary and didn't study theology, will reward you generously. I pray for you and your daughters. Michael Coren described the move as Pope Francis's monumental support of the trans community. Sounds like a very complex issue there, but generally speaking comes across as a lot of transphobia in there. Yeah, what's happening with the Pope? Jesus. Governing bodies, the state has used religion for their imperialist purposes like crusades and the Spanish Inquisition, and to have authority over people's lives. You're absolutely right. That is why we're in the state we're in right now, where Western society is generally a Christian-informed society, and that also means it's very easy for people to fall into the trap of buying into theocratic ideas, where, we generally look at the state as hopefully being separate to the church, but we are seeing people being we are seeing politicians being more and more driven by clerical obligation to their position. So Scott Morrison thinks he was appointed by God. There are a number of bills that have been put forward in the US, namely the guy in Texas who put forth that abortion bill recently, the 6-week heartbeat bill, whatever it was, who was also trying to repeal what he calls sodomy laws, anti-sodomy laws. So that's a full-on political, religious crusade. You know, it feels a bit like the Pope is rocking a bit of that cis savior mentality. He may well be. Hello, Kaz. Who are we praying for? Anyone who's non-religious. Anyway, he said poppers and weed are cool and going over the speed limit. Anyways, I'm just gonna start off. Not start off, but you know, he said you should only pirate movies if you're poor. Though, really, why is the Pope so clued into all this shit? Where were we? Those people were also elected by the majority. Those people were elected by those who could vote. Do you know what? What's the thing I'm looking for? People didn't believe me when I told them anal was illegal in Texas. Fucking hell, it's wild. Those people were elected by those who were actually eligible to vote. You know, over in the US, things are pretty fucked up with regards to voting. Here in Australia, things are still kind of fucked up, mostly because of the party system. Mostly because of the fact that, you know, next election we're going to have a Labour or a Liberal party in Parliament. There's not really much we can do to change that. Vote Labour, I guess. Or vote Greens and cross your fingers. But, you know, the reason the majority voted those particular people into government is because the what's it called? What's the fucking thing? Not redlining. The other thing that makes it gerrymandering is one factor of a larger whole of effectively what's the phrase I'm looking for? Voter manipulation. That's not it. Voter suppression. That's the one. Yeah. So certain people, like let's just say for example, there's one district where polling booths are open for a whole day or a whole weekend in one specific district, on a weekend or a public holiday, and then in other districts, that polling booth is only open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the middle of a busy working day, and if you don't get your vote in, too bad, tough shit. First past the post, what does that mean? First past the post electoral system, I'm not sure what that term means. Feels like a law that's on the books but has been ruled unconstitutional in the Supreme Court, so would be unenforceable. This is another problem. The abortion bill in Texas that was recently passed, or whatever it was, they have a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court in the US at the moment, which is bad. It's really fucking bad. It's called preferential voting in Australia. Oh yeah, that's the system we have. Anyway. You usually feel bad about trolling trans people, then fucking don't, dude. My vote last federal election wasn't counted despite me putting it in because someone put your dead name and your actual name as two different people. That's okay. That's frustrating. Each riding sends one representative, and the largest vote getter gets that seat. Not the abortion or the anal sex law. I know. I'm just keeping it relevant to the modern things. There's a TikTok group called Gen Z for Change, and they talk about the abortion law in Texas, and the person speaking made every point, and I feel like politicians won't even hear a single word. Yeah, they won't. More people should mean more access to accommodate if it's more time or more locations. And that's the thing. They will make voting accessible, it seems, particularly in the US, to the people that they, like the districts they know are going to vote red, for example. They're going to make voting much more accessible to those groups. And then in areas that they know are going to vote blue, because they have information on this stuff, they're going to restrict as much access to voting in those areas as they possibly can. So it's not really that the majority are voting in the conservative government that's restricting abortion laws and trying to repeal sodomy laws and trying to take away trans rights and women's rights and all of these things. And again, with the trans rights discussion, we were the canary in the coal mine. You can't be shocked that Texas is trying to basically strip away Roe because they were already going after trans rights in the first place. So anyway, that's the thing, right? That's the main thing. Is like they're going to take away the opportunity as much as they can for certain voters to actually get their vote in. In a first-past-the-post electoral system, voters cast their vote for a candidate of their choice, and the candidate who receives the most wins, even if the top candidate gets less than 50%, which can happen when there are more than two popular candidates. Okay, I see. On election day, it takes longer to count all the votes in populated cities, and conservatives always try to complain that it's vote rigging. You're curious, Phage. You're curious, okay. 2022 midterms are in 13 months, which will be interesting to see how that unfolds. The Australian federal election is in, I think it's early next year. I think it's May. I think is the next Australian federal election is May. Uneven voting access is such bullshit. It's bullshit that works for conservatives. That's the only... Within the next 6 months. Okay. That's good. With the Norway elections this year, you had several weeks to show up on evenings or weekends. And that's the thing. They could do that. If it was genuinely a democracy in the United States, or even here in Australia, but I think Australia still does have has arguably more of a democracy. It comes back down to that freedom of choice thing, right? Like you have free choice, you have free will insofar as we give you access to the options available that we've chosen. Right, so you can vote for whatever party you want, but ultimately it's not gonna matter all that much. It's still gonna be one of the two major parties. But yeah, the uneven voting thing generally is a system designed to keep conservative people in conservative seats. Because there are a lot of people out there, I think they did polls on this actually, that show there are many, many people who actually hold progressive views, but they generally happen to be in circumstances that prevent them from actually voicing their political concerns, from actually wanting to put their vote in, or being able to put their vote in. Canada just had an election and literally only 5 seats out of 338 changed, which does not shock me. I don't know a whole lot about Canada, generally speaking, with regards to policy. Just don't get how these people feel so small they have to try and control people's lives through law, etc. Probably some variant of psychopathy, I don't know. Just holding out for my future cousin-in-law's election party. Am I the only one who loves watching votes being counted? I don't know, I've never seen it done. Most of the independents like the United Australia Party and One Nation are just libs by a different name. You're given the illusion of choices. They all preference libs number one. Yeah, exactly. Used to vote every 4 years, then every 2 years, and now every year. It's important from town to state up to national. Sorry to divert from the subject, but I look fire. Thank you kindly, Rubber Pig. I mean, I should probably vote more often than I do. I mean, I vote in federal elections and state elections, but definitely voting in the next Fed election. But I don't see it making a difference, is a thing. Is one of those awful things. Oh, my cat's in the laundry basket and I disturbed him. Oopsie daisy. On the subject of voting, let's hit a record here because this is interesting. This is something I wanted to bring up earlier. And now we're going to do it. Now we're going to talk about it. Alabama Republican busted looking at trans adult pics online after voting against trans rights. This is an old story. This is from back in March, but it speaks to a particular kind of personality within political spheres. State Senator Tom Whatley used his work account to show his appreciation of a fairy princess. A Republican state lawmaker in Alabama was caught looking at transgender porn online just a week after he voted in favor of a bill that attacks transgender minors' access to life-saving health care. Alabama State Senator Tom Whatley, Republican, liked an explicit tweet by the account Bambi Hardcore TG18+, who describes himself as an NB trans girl fairy princess. I love my new fat G-cup titties, their tweet said, with a picture of their breasts. The tweet was posted on February 15, 2021. It appears in Whatley's likes feed, and his work-associated account is listed in the tweet's likes. I feel like these people just are not aware of the fact that their likes are public. And to be fair, Twitter doesn't make it obvious, but your likes are public. You know, if you like anything on Twitter, I've probably been caught in 4K liking some of my friends' big titty posts. Honestly, I don't care though, is the thing. I'm not a Republican state senator voting against trans rights and then following and liking T-girl posts on the Bird app. Anyway, this may surprise some of his constituents, considering what he was doing at work just last week. Again, this is back in March. Whatley voted in favor of SB 10 in the state Senate, a bill that would criminalize doctors who provide gender-affirming healthcare to young people in accordance with established transgender standards of care. The bill would be so draconian that a doctor who prescribes puberty blockers would get 10 years in jail for doing their job. According to the AP, the bill would cover talk therapy for transgender youth. Would even cover talk therapy for transgender youth. So, in this circumstance, trans kids would not even just be able to go talk to a therapist about their gender identity, gender dysphoria, any of that. So not even just going and talking to somebody who would listen to them. We don't want them affirming that, hey, yeah, you're right, you should be a boy if you were born a female, said the bill's sponsor, State Senator Shay Shelnut. Whatley offered an amendment to exempt counselors, but it was rejected. He still voted in favor of the bill. I mean, that's kind of a step in the right direction, but not exactly helping the case. The bill's text says that treatments like puberty blockers, even after years of testing and administered by a doctor, somehow constitute dangerous and uncontrolled human medical experimentation that may result in grave and irreversible consequences to their physical and mental health. This is such a ridiculous exaggeration. Like, puberty blockers have been rigorously tested and are used on cis kids for, what's it called? Like, basically they start puberty early. That's what puberty blockers were originally designed for, right? And they can be used for, like, we have evidence that they work and that they don't actually have these dramatic, disastrous consequences. You know what they're worried about? You know what they're actually worried about when they say this shit? They're worried that that kid is going to grow up sterile and not be able to have children. Not everybody wants to have children, but they want you to have children. It's all about controlling people's bodies so they can go and make more kids. That's what this is really about, right? Anyway. Puberty blockers, like their name suggests, actually delay the onset of puberty so trans youth, their parents, and their doctors can have time to understand their identities and come up with the best path forward. If a trans person stops taking them, they undergo puberty associated with their sex assigned at birth. One study found that transgender teens who wanted puberty blockers and were able to get them had significantly reduced risk of suicidal thoughts for the rest of their lives compared to trans teens who wanted them but didn't get them. So, another point to bring up here is you've either got kids that go through puberty and deal with extreme mental health issues and probably end up killing themselves, or you get kids who end up happy because they were able to transition. Which would you want? Anyway, another study found that the treatment improves transgender youth's lives and that almost all trans youth grow up to be transgender adults. This isn't the first time an opponent of transgender rights has been caught looking at trans adult content. In 2018, the anti-LGBTQ host of InfoWars, Alex Jones, was caught on camera with a video on his phone that had Naughty T-Babe in the title. I'm pretty sure this happened again recently with Alex Jones. Again. I was like looking up some reporter we're trying to hire today and punched in some number and it popped up porn on my phone, Jones claimed at the time. Okay. Everybody has had porn pop up on their phone hundreds of times. Oh yeah, happens to me all the time, guys. All the time. I'm just Googling normal shit. I was looking up a mirror. I want to get a mirror.
Round
hey, Yarrow.
Bernie 2036.
You've cheered a total of 79,000. Thank you for the 500, Yarrow, you legend. Yeah, like I was trying to look up a mirror on Gumtree yesterday, and to my shock, just hundreds of pages of porn just came up out of nowhere, because that's normal. What is phone security? Oops, all porn. LGBTQ Nation asked Whatley why he liked that tweet. As a publication, he has not responded, but he has unliked the tweet on Twitter. This news site also requested comment from the model in the picture. The article will be updated if either responds. So, I had a thought about this. I had a thought about this particular thing. And do you recall the situation over in, I think it was Hungary, I'm not sure. But there was a notable politician who was voting against gay rights, trying to criminalize gay sex, basically. And then was found to be attending gay orgies, right? The internet is for porn. Yes, indeed it is. Yeah, and much like the same, much like this kind of situation here, I have this thought in my head, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that the people who are particularly invested in this shit, people like this state senator who, enjoys looking up trans porn, people like Alex Jones or whatever, anyone who's generally commenting against, let's just keep it with the trans rights thing, but like the people who are generally rallying against trans rights, who get caught out looking at trans porn and all that, I think the taboo is what they're actually invested in sexually, right? Is what they're actually invested in that regard. And as a result, by fighting against those things, like if you got Alex Jones commenting against trans people and then looking up trans porn, you've got politicians trying to basically remove trans rights wholesale and then going and looking up trans porn stars on Twitter or whatever else. The way they get off to this shit is the fact that it's illegal, or the fact that it's criminalized, or the fact that it's whatever. You know, the fact that trans people are still considered taboo in society. And if they fight as hard as they possibly can to keep it taboo, that keeps it... This is a weird thought process, but like it keeps it hot for them. Honestly, that's just the way I'm looking at this. It's like maybe they do have a genuine vested interest in hating trans people and trying to take away their rights. But I look at this and I think they find it actively... This is the only way they can get off anymore, is by taking our rights away. That's fucking depressing. Anyway, and because we're sexy as hell. Yes, the forbidden fruit, exactly. Seen from the same POV from people who are anti-trans, who boil down their arguments to "you're only a woman if you can have kids," but when it gets pointed out some cis women are infertile, their argument falls apart. Yeah. Try to look up how much money Alex Jones will owe for what. Lost a lawsuit and has to pay money to the Sandy Hook family is good. Why do you think the net was born? True. Gridlock, yes. Hello, Wolf. I have not seen you in your PNG, no. Not the only Avenue Q fan in here, I see. I've only heard like that song, anyway. They like getting off to the fact that they can get away with stuff that others can't. Pretty much. It's a power play. Like, it's like, when it comes to this stuff specifically, it's a sexual power play, you know. It can still be anti-gay rights and still like gay orgies. It's just the masochism side coming through. They want their orgies broken up by a crew of truncheon twirling goons. It's just specialized kink. Well, I suppose so. It's a very odd intersection of a bunch of different things, honestly. Also, I don't think this is necessarily kink shaming, to be honest with you. I don't think it's necessarily a kink shaming thing to talk about the fact that these people are probably getting off to the fact that they're taking away people's rights. If they remove trans rights, then they'll no longer be trans porn. Well, no, not necessarily. That's the thing, is like trans people will continue to exist and will continue to make trans porn. Which is honestly, like, I think part of the reason... Well, I was going to say part of the reason there are so many trans sex workers, but really there's just so many sex workers in general. But, you know, it's an avenue that trans people can get into for making money legitimately. Well, not legitimately in some circumstances. Depends where you live. But it is one of those few avenues where you can actually make a consistent income to an extent, because there are always going to be people looking for that kind of thing. And, you know, just because you criminalize something doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just makes it more dangerous. If it involves people who didn't consent, nor is it safe or sane, it ain't kink, therefore not kink shaming. True. I can give birth, but I'm not a woman, so how does that work? Yeah, exactly. Although you've never tried. True. It's fucking disturbing how the thought process of these politicians works. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like, I can't imagine how they actually think. I don't know how they think. But you can't look at the way most politicians operate and think these are stable people, realistically. You know, there's a lot that goes into politics that, or a lot that goes through the minds of politicians, I should say, that we're never going to properly understand as lay people. It's a thing. Anywho, I just wanted to touch on that because that is a story that's a few months old at this point, but it's an interesting thing to consider, that maybe the reason this keeps happening is because just generally it's, I don't know. I don't think there's a moral or ethical obligation they have to pass these bills that restrict trans rights. It's messed up. I'm trying to like wrap my head around what else I could say here, but just generally speaking, it's a system of control that they've manifested. They want to be able to prevent kids from doing things that, like I've mentioned this in the past a few times, kids know themselves, right? Kids are aware of who they are. Kids can be aware that they're trans, right? But anyway, that's I'm not sure if I've gotten my points thoroughly across here in this segment, but generally speaking. Random people who won't be empowered next period have less institutional incentives to corrupt them. You think so? Sometimes it makes you wish we could try sortition instead. What's sortition? Porn is a consistent income, but the industry destroys images for those who get out to try and make a new career outside of it. Mia Khalifa is a good example of that. That's true. It's true. Anyways. That's about it for that one. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, tune in here at twitch.tv/AbigailBeck, and I'll see you when I'm looking at you. Alright, so there is another story actually that I want oh, I closed the wrong thing. Dang it. Let me see. There was another window I had here that I wanted to look at really quickly. Here we go. Oh no, we already talked about the prisons thing. We briefly touched on it. We can come back to it later if we want. I'll leave that window open. Close tabs. Alabama governor signs bill. Why is it Alabama? Alabama sounds like a terrible place to live. Jesus Christ. They'd only ever done 12 videos over the course of a few months, and they're still all over the internet like they're still working. Yeah, exactly. A cheeky, quickie YouTube vid today. I want to look at this. This is amusing. This amuses me. Okay, so LGBTQ newspaper, and then we'll get into Ozpol shortly. We're going to talk about Aussie politics shortly, maybe after the break. LGBTQ newspaper publisher proclaims no one gives a hoot about woke gender identity. I think we can establish that's fucking wrong. TJ Mortimer, the owner of the Pride LA newspaper, made the comments condemning a school teacher that asked what their students' pronouns were. TJ Mortimer, the publisher of the Mirror Media Group, including publications such as the Santa Monica Mirror, Palisades News, and LGBTQ newspaper The Pride LA, allegedly denounced a teacher being criticized for asking his students what their preferred pronouns were, or are. There is no place in school where this should be, Mortimer wrote in a comment from his Facebook page. In the real world, no one gives a hoot about your gender identity. Woke kids equal soft kids, which equals soft adults. What exactly the fuck is the problem with people being soft? Can I ask this point? Excuse me. There is so much vilification. Stop bumping the microphone, Abigail. There's so much vilification of people having feelings. I fucking hate it. It's so wild. It's like, okay, people feel things. People are allowed to feel things. People should feel things. They should be encouraged to feel things. You know? If you're one of those people who's like, soft kids equals soft adults, it's like, okay, maybe we should be more empathic as a society. Maybe we should understand people more and stop treating them like shit. Ever thought of that? Mortimer further said that it's not a teacher's place to let kids in middle school decide anything without their parents. Kids can understand their own identities. And that he hopes this changes in the right direction before my kids get there. The world's a hard place. Be soft, exactly. That macho man seems really threatened by the concept of pronouns. I know, it's such a bitch move to be offended by pronouns. Imagine being offended by pronouns. According to the Los Angeles Blade, Mortimer made the comments about a report from Spectrum News Orange County about a teacher at Oak Middle School who gave out a survey during the first week of class. The survey included a question requesting students to provide their preferred pronouns. Okay, so what? Okay, the survey includes a question requesting students to provide their preferred pronouns. Who cares? Who honestly gives a shit? Like, does that... And I mean, this is the thing. He says no one gives a hoot, but realistically speaking, yeah, who does? Like, this is the thing. Who gives a hoot? But clearly this guy is upset by it, so he does. You know, realistically speaking, if everyone in the class, for example, is cis... If everyone in that class is cis and they just put down their preferred pronouns as all the boys put he, him, all the girls put she, her, who cares? And if one person who everyone thought was a boy puts down she, her, who cares? It doesn't disrupt the entirety of society. It's one person who's like, I want to be referred to by these pronouns. I prefer these pronouns. Who cares? Why do they make this such an issue? It doesn't matter. Students told reporters they understood that this was their teacher's way of being inclusive. That's it. Yeah, they're making a big deal out of nothing. Are the cis okay? They were never okay. He wanted his students to know they are in a safe space, a student who did not want to be named told Spectrum News. Still, parents and right-wing activists who have been battling it out with the Los Alamitos Unified School District, LAUSD, claim this is evidence that critical race theory and so-called woke actions... That sentence just cuts off. The LAUSD claim this is evidence that critical race theory and so-called woke actions. It just ends there. This is that sentence just cuts off. I think there's meant to be more in there. Like that sentence. Let me reread it. Still, parents and right-wing activists who have been battling it out with the Los Alamitos Unified School District claim this is evidence that critical race theory and other so-called woke actions, that are destroying the fabric of society. I did just round out the sentence there. That's bad writing. Anyway. Everything has gone so woke and so left that I can't take it anymore, Stacey Muller, a parent who already removed her students from the district but is planning to run for the LAUSD board, claimed. So woke and so left. What is wrong with people having their pronouns respected? Hire an editor, please. Yeah, please. Both Muller and Robert Aguilar, an organizer and failed LAUSD board candidate, rip, claim that it's inappropriate for the teacher to ask students about sexual stuff and about their sexuality, despite the fact that the teacher asked about pronouns which would reflect the student's gender identity, not sexual orientation. Yeah, exactly. The teacher was not asking about sexuality. You guys suddenly turned it sexual. Really weird behavior there, conservatives. What you doing? It's nothing to do with sexuality, but maybe you would understand that if you actually took 2 seconds to read into it. The Spectrum News report was shared in a private Facebook group for residents of Rossmore, a subdivision of the Los Alamitos area within Orange County. That's when Larry Tenney, a resident and member of the Facebook group, saw Mortimer's comment. I'm going to put a stream marker here really quickly because I might make this our video for Friday instead of the other one. By his post, Mortimer seemed disgusted, outraged even with the idea, Tenney told The Blade, and discovering that he ran a pro-LGBTQ publication shocked him. Tenney decided to leave a reply to Mortimer expressing my disgust that the publisher of the Pride LA would be posting such ignorant, homophobic things. They're just so used to sexualizing kids so they can't imagine other people not. Bang on the money, Zach. Bang on it. I also informed him that California law requires 7th grade students receive 10 to 13 hours of sex education, and that includes LGBTQ awareness and understanding, he added. In response, Mortimer blocked Tenney. Of course he did. Because these people live in an echo chamber. Like, these are the kinds of people that are going on about free speech and all of this shit, right? They're constantly going on about how you can't have a conversation, you can't discuss these things anymore, you can't have opinions. And the moment you express a dissenting opinion to their bullshit, they block you, they shut you down, or they move off to Parler or some shit. They don't want to have the conversation, but they constantly say they do. Anyway. But not before other people saw it and also replied, and not before Tenney shared the revelation outside the group. So, TJ Mortimer owns Mirror Media Group. There's this thing. If we click on this. Mirror Media Group, publisher of the Pride LA, SM Mirror, Yo Venice. He wants Los Alamitos School Board recalled because middle school teacher asked students to ID their pronouns. Part of his livelihood comes from the LGBTQ community. Thank you for the basic 100 bits, Yarrow. But my free speech blocks everyone who exercises free speech in a way they don't like, pretty much. Absolutely disgusting that the publisher of the Pride LA, a newspaper servicing the queer community in Los Angeles, would publicly condemn a teacher for asking students their preferred pronouns. Mortimer has since deleted the comment, but Tenney told The Blade, I don't know, maybe he didn't want his right-wing Orange County friends to know he was the publisher of the Pride LA. Mortimer could not be reached by The Blade for comment. Other comments he has made on social media have come to light as well. Excuse me. In 2020, he said in response to an article about raising taxes to pay for state homeless services, it's gotten to the point where I can see a homeless person and can give a shit less. Really just great people all around, aren't they? He claimed that homeless people are taken care of and it's their choice to be on the street. They aren't 150,000 Californians, it's just 150,000 randoms. What the fuck does that mean? Mirror Media Group boasts that they print about 45,000 newspapers in circulation and over 50,000 email subscribers between their 7 properties. The Pride LA, which prints bi-monthly, accounts for most of both groups, with only the Santa Monica Mirror having more email subscribers according to the company's website. Meanwhile, LAUSD continues to face an intense, coordinated right-wing effort to reform the many inclusive rules and recall school board members who are not supportive of the rights agenda.
Round on you.
Yarrow, thank you for the 200 bits. Thank you so kindly. Goodness me. It means he doesn't see them as human beings, pretty much. Yeah. That's their entire thing. While some parents and activists at this week's meeting held signs such as LGBTQ inclusion is the law, their opponents held up recall signs and claimed that teachers like the one at Oak Middle School is attempting to groom students. Yike. There is a website dedicated to documenting these grooming attempts in support of recalling the LAUSD board. Again, projection, like we've... Remember the thing with the Republican lawmaker in some state, I can't remember, who was suggesting in order to protect teenage school sports that they should hold genitalia inspections? I feel like that guy was a pedophile. I don't know. I'm just speculating. Anyway. Clinical psychologist Dr. Rebecca Romo testified at the last meeting there are no grooming behaviors represented of the teachers cited on the Yes on Recall website. I feel like that's supposed to have like caps there. This assertion is false blatantly and empirically, maligning 2 of our youngest and best and brightest teachers. Might have been Texas. Anyway. Aguilar and others continue to push the recall because they insist that adult teachers should not be discussing sexuality with their minor children. It's gender. Different concepts. I don't know why they struggle with this so hard. And I am completely of the opinion that teenagers should have sex ed. Crazy. Even that, and like... whatever. Anyway, despite the law and the repeated fact that pronouns do not represent one's sexual orientation. This is wild, man. This is completely off the wall. Anyway. Matt Gaetz, who is currently being investigated. Yeah, exactly. It's always a self-report. It always is. Anywho. There's that. Frickin' hell, man. Leave the queers alone, would ya? What's the problem here? Oh, Jesus. It's always some level of... It's one of 2 things. It's flagrant ignorance of an issue. Like complete and utter ignorance. Like was seen several times in there where they were discussing sexuality. There was nothing sexual about asking for pronouns. Kids learn what pronouns are in like when? When do they learn pronouns in school? When do kids learn pronouns in school? Somebody find me a general curriculum, because this is basic English. For the people who constantly go on about basic biology, you know, they teach kids about pronouns in like, what, 1st, 2nd grade, something like that, when they're very, very little. My daughter knows what pronouns are, you know. Like year 1 or 2, exactly. Like it's not a radical new concept. And by the time kids are going into what would be middle school or high school here in Australia, because like in America it's like they go to middle school for like age 13, 14, 15 I think, and then high school for the last 2 or 3 years. I don't recall. But anyway, here in Australia you just go, at least where I went to school, it was primary school and high school. And yeah, by the time, like, I mentioned this in Socialized Mail, I mentioned the fact that when you're a teenager, you begin to form your own identity based on any number of different factors. You begin to explore yourself and come to terms with who you are becoming, or who you will be as an adult, right? You're going through a very transformative phase, and especially given that just the concept of choosing your own pronouns. And it's not even really specifically a choice, honestly. I mean, maybe for some it is. That's a whole other discussion that we could get into if you want to. But generally speaking, you know, it harms no one to allow teenagers to choose their own pronouns. It literally harms no one at all. There's nothing wrong with it. These people are getting angry at teenagers self-identifying, which again, harms no one. The act of identifying yourself, identifying your own gender, identifying your own sexuality, which again gender and sexuality are two distinct concepts that do feature some interlinking. But they are still distinct concepts. They're over here. You know, in the same way that chemistry and biology are two distinct concepts, but they intersect. You know, kids should stick to amateur nouns until they're ready to go pro. Kids already learn pronouns. It's in school they learn, but they're called pronouns. Yeah, exactly. Almost 2 hours streaming. I usually take my break on the 2 hour mark, honestly. So at 10 o'clock in 20 minutes for me. Anyways, they know they can't argue on even ground, so they have to distort everything. Exactly. It's all like it comes back to that Ben Shapiro video we were watching a while back, where he was talking about trans men. He was talking about Elliot Page. And by the end of a 10-minute video, he had completely segued onto trans women barging into bathrooms or something. Like, it's not related. He jumped between like 5 different topics, going from Elliot Page and eventually cascading onto trans women in bathrooms. And it's all bad faith. Which I know some people have got issue with the phrase bad faith these days, but just generally speaking, they're not arguing from any reasonable perspective. They don't have a reasonable perspective. And we've had this discussion before on numerous occasions that the right will just spew rhetoric constantly of just whatever, and that informs their policy making, right? And then the left has to spend all this time picking it apart and unpacking it and debunking it and all that, to the point where by the time we have finished debunking whatever point they're making, they've already made like 12 more and they've moved on to another subject. Like, we've seen them jump from trans rights to critical race theory to they've cycled back around to abortion. Like, it's just a constant struggle. And then they generally have a dismissive attitude towards climate. So, you know. Hello, sexy potato. How you doing? The Gesh Galloping, pretty much. Yeah, the Ben Shapiro special. There are several reasons I ended up with imaginary friends, and one of those reasons was to put all those identity issues into a separate being that I locked away in the back of my imaginary island. He has since been released, but as you can probably guess, he's still a bit salty. Well, yeah. I just hydrated! Fine. Anyway. Had a thought the other day, why do we assign a gender at birth when the gender only becomes relevant during their teen years? That's a fair point. I mean, we know why. We know why people are assigned a gender at their... And a free flip-off. Forlorn, you can have another one for the sake of it. Thank you for the hugs. I just got to get up for a second, though. I got to go do something really quickly. I won't be long. Don't go away. But I will be taking my proper break soon. Okay, yo-yo, really? And yeah, honestly, Clara, that's literally the point I was about to start on with. We'll do some yo-yo. Let's talk about the gender role thing. Because yeah, like Mega has said, like Clara has said, you start them young. This is how church works as well, right? You start them young. You get them indoctrinated into it from the get-go. You teach them, right, that the gender they have fits a certain role. So this is why, with regards to gender roles, there are still, for example, young girls are generally given toys that are dolls that have got pretty clothes and long hair, and you buy them. Well, you might not buy them these things, but, you know, generally speaking, boys are given, like, trucks and tools and... What else are they given? Give me some ideas. Like, weirdly, guns. I'm really disturbed by the fact that there's still such a prevalence towards boys' toys being guns and swords and all that. Like, I have a sword. Don't call me out on that shit. But, you know, just generally speaking, the roles that we are assigned as babies, based on our genitalia, effectively. There's just an observation made on your genitalia from birth. You have a penis, you're a boy. You have a vagina, you're a girl. and they specifically cater your childhood and then your teenage years and then your adulthood based on the fact that they want people to be strictly in one of two categories. And they can't... the current society in which we live benefits directly from people being stuck in that rigid binary. Which is why there are so many people nowadays who are wildly uncomfortable with the idea of anyone breaking free of that or transitioning to the other side. And yes, I am a sword lesbian. A proud sword lesbian. Science kits for boys, cooking kits for girls. Oh yeah, yeah. Pushing girls into STEM, pushing women into the kitchen. Anyway. It's, why does a baby need a pink or blue room or gender-specific toys or clothes? Excuse me. So, yeah. Heavily influenced by sexism and white supremacy. Yes, exactly. We have talked about the fact that the modern binary gender system is heavily influenced by colonial oppression, essentially. Like the way that we live now under a binary gendered system has had an erasive element with regards to the way gender works in native cultures, generally speaking. Like, for example, two spirits in Native American culture. And that's just it. Why do we have people form their lives around their genitals? Why not their eye color or hair color or finger length? Well, that's the thing too, right? From the get-go, being assigned a gender is the first role you're going to be given as a human being. Your first role is either going to be boy or girl, man or woman, male or female. And that's going to dictate pretty much what your life is going to turn out like. And I know this is stereotyping, but that's the thing. Our society is built on stereotypes, whether we want to believe it or not. I've had TERFs try to criticize me for simply stating that, generally speaking, gender is stereotypes. Gender is a system of stereotypes designed to control us. So the point you've made there, Kez, comes back around to Philosophy Tube's video Social Constructs, in which she talks about a hypothetical other Earth, or several other Earths, where the example given was, for example, nowadays, a lot of the social constructs we have are, well, yeah, our gender is socially constructed, right? Race is socially constructed. Any kind of deviation from, or rather, like, the way we are treated in society based on our sex, or our gender, or our ability, race, age, all of those things are socially constructed. Like, we are told you can't do certain things or you can do certain things based on those little categories, those little boxes that we're given. But yeah, two brains, one thought. Great minds. But yeah, like in Abby Thorne's video, is it Thorne with an E or just Thorne like a rose thorn? I can't remember. Anyway, in the video she talks about this alternate Earth, Earth 2 or whatever it was, where peoples were sorted into a certain category based on their height. If you were particularly tall, you were given better social status. If you were particularly short, you were considered to be of a lower social status. This concept called Schmight, which we don't really have in society now. Nobody is given a job, unless you're a basketballer, really, or a jockey. You know, generally speaking, no one really has a specific privilege based on their height in our society. But in this alternate Earth, people are given a certain privilege based on their height. And if you look back at the video by Bill Nye, where he talks about, realistically speaking, our race is just where we were born on the planet in relation to the equator, in relation to where the sun hits the most. You know, people closer to the equator tend to have darker skin. People closer to the north or south poles tend to have lighter skin because there's less sun hitting those areas, or there's a more cloudy environments or things of that nature. Once you begin to realize that we are all just human beings, technically speaking, race should fall apart as a social construct, but it doesn't, because, well, realistically, it doesn't fall apart because people are not willing to accept that. People are far too invested in the idea of race, and as a result, we can't really dismiss it. And by the same token, people are far too invested in the idea of gender, and we can't dismiss it. People are far too invested in, honestly, the social construct of biological sex feeds into the modern concept of gender with regards to binary. So technically you cannot separate biological sex and gender, because a basic observation of the exterior of an infant human being is their genitalia, and that dictates the role they will have. So, generally speaking, someone who has a penis is going to have all those other biological sex characteristics, broadly speaking. We've seen the excuse me, let me find it. We've seen this graphic, which I did bring up in the video. Where is it? This one, the bimodal sex spectrum thing, right? We've talked about this before. Most people are going to be B or C on this chart, right? They're going to be, generally speaking, at one of those two peaks. They're going to be male or female, and they're going to have the majority of the biological sex characteristics associated with the genitalia. But doctors are not going to know if you fall either in the middle of that valley or on the outsides of those peaks, just based on it. Or doctors, nurses, midwives, whoever, they're not going to know if you are intersex just by looking at your genitals, unless, of course, the specific intersex characteristic that you have is some kind of... What would you call it? What would you call it if you had like some difference in your genital structure as a baby, or in general? What we are, the roles we are assigned at birth, external sex characteristics, I suppose, which could determine whether a child is intersex. But still, like, again, this feeds into the notion of how gender is socially constructed. Intersex children are generally subjected to surgery on their genitals to correct them, right? This is the unfortunate reality of the situation. For all the bandying about genital mutilation on children that conservatives love to go on about, they completely ignore the fact that it's already happening as we speak to intersex babies, to force them into either being male or female, and as a result giving them the gender role of boy or girl, right? So when the best way to describe this is, broadly speaking, most males are going to have most male characteristics, sex characteristics, and most females are going to have most female sex characteristics. However, the specific reality of the situation is that purely based on a genital observation, we are given a social role, which is how we are expected to perform our gender in society, how we are expected to behave. And that is specifically the social construct aspect of this whole thing. There's no reason that men should be expected to be manly and women should be expected to be feminine or whatever. There's no reason that we should have these specific behaviors that we have to abide by. But we are assigned that role from birth, and we are expected to perform it to the best of our ability. You know, you're amazed at my ability to talk? So am I, honestly. How the fuck am I still doing this? Maybe if I actually stayed at university, I would be able to talk even better because I would have more knowledge. So first they assign you a gender based on your genitals, then they try to tell you the earth is round. So should we dismiss race? Yeah, like Clara said, as a whole, yes, but the system is built around it, so ignoring it isn't right now. So this is this is my specific umbrage with the colorblind thing that some people seem to think is a progressive perspective, but realistically it's not. You cannot be colorblind in a racist society, and whether you like it or not, we live in one. No matter where you are in the world, we live in a racist society. Specifically in the Western world, we live in a racist society. You cannot be colorblind in this situation that we're in right now. We cannot ignore the fact that, like, if I see an indigenous person walking down the street, I whether I want to or whether I want to believe it or not, I have to concede that that person does not have many of the privileges I have as a white person in a colonial society, right? Or if I see an Asian person or anyone of any other race that's not white, I have to concede that I have privilege that they don't, you know? It's bedtime because you're going to be a cog tomorrow. Sounds good, Kev. Well, it doesn't sound good, but have a good rest at the very least, you know? Go be a cog. And yeah, Clara, this is a discussion that I think some people don't want to have. I call myself a lesbian because I'm attracted to women. I'm attracted to feminine people, generally speaking. But you could argue the fact that the label that better suits me personally is probably pansexual. And the reason I say that is because I think I have experienced some degree of sexual change since beginning to understand my gender identity on a deeper level. This water is not helping clear my throat. Hopefully I can, when I take my break in a minute, I might put some ice in it or something. I don't know. Maybe I've got something that can help clear my throat. I've been talking for 2 hours straight. Forgive me. When we come back, there's a video I want to watch, actually. Coming back to the sex worker thing. But, the more I look at sexuality, the more I am beginning to realize that sexuality itself is socially constructed in such a way that, and I mentioned this in the video, I mentioned this in Socialized Male, which, if you've not already watched it, here's the link to Socialized Male, my latest video essay. And I talk about the fact that social constructs are not necessarily a bad thing, but they're just something that we've all, those of us living in this society or other societies or whatever, have just accepted as the norm. We've just grown to realize this thing is normal, right? So generally speaking, most people are going to consider themselves heterosexual because any number of reasons. We're conditioned to think boys date the girls and kiss the girls and then marry the girls and have the babies with the girls, and the cycle continues. And we just think that's how it works, just generally speaking. And yeah, that does generally lead to the procreation of the species. That leads to the, not procreation, propagation of the species. Yes, of course. But there's 8 billion people on the planet. Do we need to propagate it anymore? And it's also worth considering the fact that I don't know, people have been expressing sexual desire and sexual action in ways that are distant or different to the heteronorm of the modern day. There is a lot. Think about the fact. Have you ever been on the Sappho and Her Friend subreddit? This is good. This is good. Have you ever considered the fact that, generally speaking, there are a number of historians who like to point out these two people who are very clearly gay were just very good friends? Let's see. Is there a good example of this? Okay. This is not exactly the right kind of thing, but this is kind of ignorance informed by heteronormative attitudes. Okay, so this is a YouTube comment. How can a guy play a women character and hit on other women and have guys hit on their characters too and not say, what the fuck am I doing? I straight up can't even think of playing Cassandra because of these reasons. Also, Alessios is canon. That's actually wrong. Cassandra is the canon protagonist in this one. When you play as Cassandra, she acts like a total dude. Also, historical facts would conflict that a woman during that time was fighting instead of taking care of family home. Jesus Christ, that's just a whole mess of things. But this is a good way that we could look at how we are conditioned to believe that heterosexuality is just norm. The reason people look at anyone gay, anyone trans, anyone like that, the reason that we are still seen as freaks, even in a society that is gradually shifting towards more accepting viewpoints, is because of shit like this. Gayness and trans just straight up confuses a lot of dumb cis hats. And the reason, the big example I love to pull out of my hat with this one is just media. Honestly, the fact that we are seeing so much blowback anytime there's any kind of woke media, anytime gay, trans, ace, etc., character is represented in media in any way, shape, or form, that media is derided as being too woke. When the reality of the situation is it's just representing people that already existed, but because mainstream media for a long time has avoided the subject of queer people, most people do not even acknowledge that queer people exist, or most people think that it's some kind of agenda to turn everyone gay or trans. It's ridiculous. The idea that gender roles were always that way is very important for supremacist logic. Exactly. The idea that trans people only started existing a couple of decades ago instead of we've always been around forever. Yeah, they really... What's the phrase I'm looking for? The revision of history. Historical revisionism. there's a lot of evidence that suggests that transness and gayness and all of this has always existed. Homosexuality has always existed. Queer relationships, queer identities have always existed in multiple different societies, in multiple non-white societies. But a lot of people really don't like the idea, and it's generally informed by Judeo-Christian values. They just really don't like the idea of us existing historically. Social constructs are fundamental agreements a society has one come to and one has to opt out of, pretty much. It's the idea of a new threat rather than colonization and ripping apart a huge part of human culture and society, reframing themselves as the victims, facing against invaders. Yeah, it's the whole trans agenda thing. Like, let's talk about the trans agenda thing. How many trans people are there? We are an extreme minority. There's not many of us. There's not a lot of us. But there are so many people who are in that silent majority that they love to go on about. There are so many people who are in that group, and now is break time, but we'll just go to the end of this point. There are so many people who've got millions of dollars, billions of dollars in some cases, who think, and they've got huge influence, tons of followers on social media or whatever, or they're career politicians. They're people who've got power, people who've got legitimate strength, or they are journalists or people who have some sort of sway. People like J.K. Rowling. What does J.K. Rowling have to worry about with regards to trans people? And they express this concern for the deconstruction of gender norms, basically, as though we are some big, powerful, invading force. But we legitimately just want to live our lives as society around us exists. Anyway, it is 10 o'clock. I'm going to take our 5-minute break or whatever, and we'll come back. And we'll talk about Ozpol. We'll talk about Aussie politics. Gladys is gone, and then we'll do more of that stuff. BRB, folks. Don't go away. What is up, I'm not allowed to say that word on Twitch, but I might call you all that on Twitter later on, because it's edgy stuff that edgy queer people say. Reclaiming slurs. It's a vibe. How's it going? Let's do some Ozpol, shall we? Hang on. What the fuck? Why'd that alert not play? Momo-chan, what do you say to the beach when it asks you to step on it? Sure. That deserves a rim shot. What's everyone's favorite pastry? That's a good question. Let's start with this conversation. What's your favorite pastry, folks? What is your favorite pastry? Hit us. Borex? I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that is. What is Borex? Almond croissants. That's quite good. Yes, I've got coffee at 10 o'clock at night. Raspberry and custard streusel. Vanilla crowns. God, I don't even... Vanilla slice? Maybe? I don't know. I don't eat pastries often, so I don't know what my favorite would be. Baklava? There we go. Cheese Danish. Ooh. I don't know, what counts as a... Pumpkin pie as a pastry? Yeah, I suppose pies count. Yeah, I guess. I legitimately don't know. I have no clue. Buttered croissant. Ooh, cinnamon roll sounds nice. Heck yes. On the subject of pastries, I suppose, and on the subject of rolls, at Coles, a pretty significant supermarket chain here in Australia, they do Vegemite scrolls, which I've never tried, but I'm tempted by. I may grab one just to see how they are. It's just a pastry scroll that's got Vegemite in it. I don't see why it would be bad, so give that a crack. It is a filled pastry of thin flaky dough such as phyllo, or with a variety of fillings such as meat, cheese, spinach, or potatoes. Ooh, that sounds good. You don't have a favorite as you love food. That's fair. That's fair. You know, one cinnamon roll who's in your DMs right now. Vegemite scrolls are pretty good. Heck yeah. Oh, just pies. Yeah, pies are good. Pies are poggers. Can we get some pies in chat? Can we get some pies in chat? Hello, Sil. How you doing? Never tried Vegemite or that other thing that's supposed to be either love or hate. Bovril? Yeah, there's Vegemite, there's Bovril, there's Marmite, there's other options as well. Generally the same kind of product that, yeah, love it or hate it. I was raised on Vegemite, which feeds back into the discussion we were having earlier about indoctrination. You know, as a kid, I was fed Vegemite toast. And as a result, I have developed a taste for Vegemite, which never went away. That's indoctrination. That's how it works. They get you when you're young. He used to make a pretty heckin' good chicken pot pie. Make it for me sometime? All yeast extracts? I mean, yeah, I think so. I think so. That's pretty much what it is. Speaking of pies, there's a cutie pie. There we go. Also, I wanted to ask. I mean, I think I did ask last week. What do you think of my socials banners, social media banners that I got over here, and also my little coffee thing? If you are interested in throwing some money at the stream, either via bits or subs or whatever, go to coffee. I got coffee. And it has an alert. It should have an alert. It should have an alert that pings. But yeah. If you do that, I mean, you don't get any of the privileges of subbing, but it's still got a little ping thing. Anyway. Facebook sussy. Facebook is sus. Can we get some Facebook sus in chat? Parents didn't manage to indoctrinate me to lutefisk until my late teens. What's lutefisk? I know the name. I know what that is. Facebook's us. What's lutefisk? That's interesting. Is it a... What is it? Is dried whitefish, normally cod, but ling and burbot are also used. Also made from aged stockfish, air-dried whitefish. Or dried and salted cod pickled in lye. It is gelatinous in texture after being rehydrated for days prior to eating. That sounds weird. I don't know if I like the sound of that, but I mean, I suppose technically speaking, you know, I should try more foods, honestly. Have Fallen Leaves stuck in your head. It's a good song. I like that band. What's the band called? I can't remember what the band is called. God damn it. What's their name? Well, anyway. They're a good band. Fallen Leaves, Rusted from the Rain, Red Flag, Billy Talent. That's it, Billy Talent. I thought of it right as you said it. Yeah. Took 25 milligrams of modafinil to wake up this morning, and now I'm hyper-focusing on everything to the point where I'm forgetting about my gosh dang rights. Now you want to bake a pie. Do it. Also, there was a tweet about forget what it was. I think it was like if you take, I want to say it was cocaine. Maybe it was meth. I can't remember what drug was referenced in the tweet, but it's like if you take this drug or that drug and you find that you have this attitude of like, yeah, this is okay, but I'm not really that fussed by it. The tweet was saying something to the effect of maybe speak to your doctor about ADD meds. Hello, Scrotal. How's it going? Welcome in. Haven't baked a pie for ages though. I don't think I've never do I own a pie tin? I don't think I've ever owned a pie tin in my life. I've never baked a pie from scratch, honestly. First and foremost, I have not made the universe, so that's my first problem. To bake a pie from scratch, you must first invent the universe. So, someone offered to sell you Coke at the shops today. Speaking to the doctor about them is the easy part. Actually getting the ADHD meds, not so much. Socrascrotes. Here's the thing, kids. Don't buy cocaine from strange people at the shops. Only buy cocaine from trusted sources, okay? Anyways, so, we've got some good news. Unfortunately, it's on news.com.au. Actually, no, we'll come back to this. There's a video I want to watch with you. You've burned tea. I mean, I burn my coffee all the time. I still drink it. So I'm not that fussed. Anyway. Suck my featherless biped, Socrates, probably. More than likely, yeah. There's a video I want to watch, actually. Before we get into Ozpol, I do, like, given we were talking about sex workers earlier, there's a video I want to get into really quickly. Let's close this thing here, and we'll watch this video from the archive called What Sex Workers Wish the Publish Knew. Which the public knew. Wish the public, not the publish. That makes it sound like the publish, like, is that, what is that? Is the publish like the Polish, but they're from Publand? Who are the publish? What sex workers wish the public knew? Let's have a listen to this. Let's have a look at this.
What do you wish the public knew about sex work?
Oh, there doesn't seem to be any closed captions, by the way, unless I've turned them off. Oh, there we go.
Or sex workers?
That's a tricky one. There's so much I wish they knew.
The biggest thing is that it's just work like any other job.
That it is just really a job. There isn't really more to it.
Whether it's, you know, someone going to work as a nurse, someone going to a home office, the friggin' stock market, wherever the people working, it's the same sort of thing. It's just a job.
And having laws that recognise that as well is really crucial. People tend to focus on sex rather than work, and that.
Also, it's worth noting that I think recently in Victoria, sex work was decriminalised, so that's a step in the right direction.
Phrase.
I wish they knew how normal it was.
We do it because we love it, we enjoy what we do.
But it's a really, really empowering job.
That it's actually hard work.
You can have a good day at work, you can have a bad day at work.
Like, people like to put the blame on you and see us as hooker, you know, looking for money and trying to buy Louis Vuitton bag.
First and foremost,
I do want to buy a Louis Vuitton bag. Anyway, moving on.
People need to realise that sex workers are humans and we have feelings.
When people ask me what I do...
Oh, this person's name is Real Sick Bitch of Melbourne. I just realised that. Badass. Anyway.
I always have a bit of anxiety because you get judged really quickly. And it's like, you know, I just wish people had more of an open mind when we talk about this kind of work.
And yeah, we're
Amazing
not
name.
all addicted to drugs or failed at school or have no other options like I'm actually doing.
Well, to be fair, I should. This makes it sound like I should get into sex work, given that I did fail at school and I am addicted to drugs. So what am I doing with my life? I'm streaming on Twitch talking about politics.
Doing it because I love what
That means political commentators are based on the people who have these misconceptions. I'm worse than sex workers in their eyes.
I do.
Like, I've had chats with people who have been like...
OnlyFans when? Look, I'm probably not allowed to disclose the fact that I've strongly considered that.
almost feel guilty sometimes because they enjoy what they're doing. And that's kind of like the perk of being in this industry and being your own boss. It's not how it used to be, where it was like, people scrounging on the streets, like selling their bodies because they had literally no other option.
I wish.
This does remind me of the you just can't wait, really? So you can discuss sex work. I mean, there are porn stars on Twitch who have discussed their history with the industry. But anyway, that aside. Fuck, there was a thought I was going to bring up. Let me come back.
Scrounging on the
Oh yeah, the people scrounging on the streets thing. This reminds me of the case with the Wee Spa, where it seems as though the alleged perpetrator, the alleged person who might have exposed themselves to women and girls in the women's part of the Wee Spa or whatever, was just a trans woman who was in the Wee Spa, in the spa area, who has a history of living on the streets, who has a history of being a sex worker to get by, right? Who has a history of being a prostitute to get by, and has had several charges of indecent exposure in the past, probably due to stuff like public urination. Like the actual details surrounding her life are sketchy at best, which is of course fed into this conceited and transphobic narrative that the right has latched onto regarding that specific person, which, yeah, again comes back to the misinformation people have around sex workers. I like the idea of voyeurism and acting in porn, but I have too many confidence issues to properly pull it off. Yeah, it's true. You're going into it when lockdown lifts, literally just so you can pay for surgical aspects of transition earlier. Speaking of which, there is currently, if you're in Australia, there is a survey on... I'd have to find it. I'm going to have to bring up my friend's tweet about it. But there is a petition. There's a petition to get Medicare to cover transition-related surgeries, largely GCS and stuff.
Streets, like selling their bodies because they had literally no other option.
I wish people were a bit more educated with the industry.
Mr. Jake.
So instead of thinking it's this kind of like prostitution, which is, you know, stigmatism and stuff, or drug-ridden / dirty industry, that's what I probably don't enjoy hearing. So if anything, I would just like people to be a bit more clued up in the sense of it's an actual business. You know, like, you know, you pay your taxes, your money goes into the bank.
Everyone to an extent knows someone or knows a sex worker. They're so common. They're everywhere in every walk of life. They've been around for
link it, Zara,
centuries and centuries. It's the oldest job in the book.
I do have to take umbrage with this statement. It's the oldest job in the book. I mean, that's a fair point. But what were they? who had the currency to pay for the first prostitutes, though? Like, where was the money coming from in that circumstance? I'm being silly. Don't think too hard about that.
You know, it's not a big deal. We all do it. We all do the sex, so...
Most of those women are actually very clever and have like a plan, and most of them will do this part-time job because they're looking for to feed their child or like to spend time, to have more time to study at university.
And we are breakable, unfortunately, even though we're in a career where people think, oh, we're indestructible, you know, they have...
I love this person's outfit, good lord.
Sex and money all the time, and I can throw them around and they'll bounce back. No, we don't quite bounce back. Sometimes we need a few days off. So...
A lot of people think it's like an easy way to just get money as well, and we don't respect ourselves, you know, especially now in like what we're going through in the world and we're losing jobs and stuff like that. We need to survive too. So before you judge, listen to why we're doing what we're doing. You know what I mean?
This isn't like, I feel like some people do know this, but there's a lot of people that come into my workplace and don't realize that we don't get an hourly wage and that we only get paid through the money that they give us for dances. Some guys will come in and get really overwhelmed by the amount of girls that are flocking to them and like being like somewhat pushy, but it's like some people maybe have just made $50 that night and they're not going to make any more money. So yeah, they're like, oh, I just paid entry and now you're coming to me asking me for a dance, and it's like, first of all, that's my job. And also, we don't get paid an hourly wage. I think that's something that commonly annoys me.
I think the biggest thing that people need to know about sex workers or sex worker industry in general is the fact that we're people like everybody else. They'll see from a show like Sex and the City, or they'll watch Queer as Folk, and they'll think, oh yeah, every gay guy acts that way. Every sex worker is a street worker. And, you know, they don't think or feel the same thing.
This comes back around to the situation we were discussing before about people's perceptions of trans people and people's perception of different sexualities and all of those kinds of things. That is portrayed in mainstream media. You know, the portrayal informs people's opinions. Just realize the time you have to go to the shop. Radio still have a safe trip to the shops. A lot of trans women I know have had to do sex work of some form or another in order to survive and pay for hormones, technically including me allegedly in Minecraft parody.
feelings that I do as a person because that's who they are. But in reality, we've got emotions too, and we think and feel the same, and we bleed the same way as everybody else.
So I wish people would know that there is more in us than being a stripper, you know,
just realize
having
that.
this label of being a hooker or being a stripper.
I'd like the public to know that we are just like everyone else.
It's just a job. It's work, you can enjoy it, you can not enjoy it, you can switch off and go to your job, and that's it. But sex work is just like any other job.
Hey, my name is Daniel Dalloway. I produced this mini-series. I'd first like to give a big thank you to everybody that agreed to be interviewed for it. I couldn't have done it without your support. If you'd like to watch the uncut interviews, head on over to Patreon. Otherwise, subscribe on YouTube or follow on Instagram, whichever you prefer. And I'll see you for the next episode, which will be hopefully in a week. All right, see you later.
There we go. I just turned my mic off for some reason. Why'd I turn my mic off? That was good. I'm going to subscribe to the archive. So if you want that video and if you want to go subscribe to the archive and check out more of their content, that was good. I like that. That was very informative. Anyways, let me turn my music on really quickly. Extremely briefly turned to sex work while you were homeless. It's a thing, yeah. Like it is. It's definitely a thing, and that's honestly, it's not an uncommon story with regards to jobs in the first place, though. Like that's maybe it could be argued that sex work is debatably. I don't want to say easier to get into, because obviously it's not. It's not something that you just fall ass backwards into sex work. But, you know, I think generally speaking, people, do dramatically over-stigmatize the field. You can't wait till you have a job and can buy stuff. First thing you gotta buy is a new wardrobe. Hell yes. Thank you for watching, Scarlett, honestly. And it's an unfortunate circumstance where people, like there are genuinely those out there who will go into sex work because it's something they do enjoy. It's something they do find a lot of personal value in, which is, you know. But there are, again, like they mentioned in the video, it's just a job. Second thing is an Abby Beck, so thank you. Okay, I want to stop this from playing anyway. Gonna go full-time, you got a video game job. Hormones are really expensive, yeah, exactly. Spending nearly a grand a month on transition costs. Goodness gracious. And the stigma of the field is definitely a huge issue, and it always has been, and it always comes back around to Puritanism with regards to how people treat sex. Like, everyone's having sex, and everyone has sex. Like, and I know this is generalizing, but like everyone drinks coffee. I know you don't all drink coffee. Some of you probably never touch the stuff, but a lot of people drink coffee. A lot of people have sex. Some people pay for coffee. What's the issue? There is none. The only people who, I mean, I think what the only potential legitimate concern one could argue is that being a sex worker puts you at a potentially huge safety detriment. You know, you run the risk of being in a very, very, what would you say, like, I mean, if you're the person who's engaging in sex work at a very, like, basically prostitution level, like actually interacting with a client, that does put you at a potential safety risk, of course. You don't know when a potential client could turn violent or anything. I don't know how regular of an instance that might be, but I think one of the issues with that is, like, people will say sex work is dangerous because there are violent rapist criminals out there who will kill prostitutes, and it's like, yeah, that's true, but maybe if you legitimized the industry, maybe if you decriminalized the industry and actually allowed people to work in it safely and things like that without the fear of being brutally murdered, then yeah, it wouldn't be such a concern. Think in a utopia or a perfect society, we should be working towards a system where sex work isn't a regular thing. In a utopia or a perfect society, work wouldn't be a regular thing. Honestly. Coffee, that's what you're forgetting. You don't pay for coffee, your family does. Think of those poor exploited baristas. But yeah, perfect and utopian society, UBI. And we don't need to work for the purposes... I mean, you could argue the perfect society would be one where everything is automated and everyone has the capacity to live a luxurious life. And we don't have to worry about shit anymore. But that's not going to happen. Hated the idea that you were forced into sex work, but also the same thing applies for any job, really. Like, I can easily get harassed and assaulted in a retail job. Yeah, exactly. I've been harassed numerous times in the, in previous jobs. You know, I've had to deal with difficult people. Haven't been assaulted, but it could definitely happen. Anywho. Shall we move on? What do we want to do? UBI, how about no money? Agreed. How about no currency? No more fiat currency. Who's been following Ozpol? Who's been following Australia? And what's been going on here? Let me... I'm trying to find the specific article that we want to talk about. Well, we've got one article here. Here. This is... I think this is an opinion. Why is this under the header of coronavirus? Okay. I kind of want to start with this one, because it sort of covers basically what tonight's major story was supposed to be, but we kind of drifted off on numerous different topics. In a perfect society, sex workers would be working in the field because they just enjoy the job, and in the same would apply to every job and motivations for doing them, yes. Okay. New South Wales has been hit with a string of high-profile resignations. Let me just turn the volume down on this music. It's a little bit loud. Anyway. 2 cabinet ministers have quit following the departure of Premier Gladys Berejiklian, and that's her pictured in the middle, amid a corruption probe. The departure of New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian Centre has been followed by resignations from Andrew Constance, right, and John Barilaro, left. Okay. Politics in New South Wales has been rocked by 3 major resignations in just 4 days, developments that will have consequences not just for the state but the country. Deputy Premier and Nationals leader John Barilaro this morning followed Premier Gladys Berejiklian and Transport Minister Andrew Constance in announcing a departure from state politics. Now, as the state plans to cautiously reopen following a devastating COVID-19 Delta outbreak, 3 by-elections pose a challenge for the ruling coalition government and the leadership team. A Liberal Party room meeting on Tuesday will determine who will be the state's next premier. The next leader of the New South Wales Nationals Party will be decided in a party room meeting on Wednesday. Barilaro was the one who targeted Friendly Geordies, and we're going to get into the Friendly Geordie stuff as well. Certainly it's the coalition government's stability that is in question, Professor Stuart Jackson from the University of Sydney told SBS News. New South Wales has fixed terms of parliament, which means the incoming premier would not be able to call a snap poll. New South Wales Labor leader Chris Minns speaks during a press conference at New South Wales Parliament in Sydney Monday, October 4th. Okay. If one government falls, then it's up to another party to try and form government, Professor Jackson said. If opposition leader Chris Minns was not able to put together a government, then we might go to an early election. But until that happens, we don't actually need to consider it. But the resignation of 3 MPs will temporarily reduce the number of government MPs in the lower house, whittling its slim majority to the status of a minority government. It will then have 2 houses to navigate legislation through, and that could be a serious problem for the legislative agenda. I'm really starting to resent the term agenda. Just in general. Left a meme for me and memes to spot the difference. Okay, by-election uncertainty. At the last election in 2019, the Liberal Party has 34 seats in the New South Wales Lower House of Parliament, the Legislative Assembly, while the Nationals have 12 in opposition, and the opposition Labor Party 36. Since then, the coalition has lost 2 members to the crossbench, meaning it currently governs in the minority. Can I have a gender? Please, just one gender. Agenda, please. Please, sir, may I have another gender? Of the 3 outgoing MPs, the biggest seat held by Andrew Constance could be the one that falls out of government hands. Mr. Constance has held the seat since 2003, but saw a swing against him at the 2019 election. In Bega, the loss of a popular local member could well hurt them, and it's only held by 6%, Professor Jackson explained. Willoughby, the North Shore seat held by Gladys Berejiklian, is more likely to be retained by the coalition, although a popular moderate in the vein of Zali Steggall or Karen Phelps could produce an upset. John Barilaro won the seat of Monaro for the Nationals in 2011, previously held by the Labor Party. Professor Jackson says voters living in Queanbeyan, close to metropolitan Canberra, could prove the linchpin for the seat. They weren't heavily affected by the fires, but they were affected quite seriously by the various lockdowns and the need, or lack of need, for a Canberra bubble. An agendum, Sir Humphrey would say. Yes, I want more gender. More gender, please. Many more genders. just to disrupt the binary heteronormative society in which we live. Just give us more genders. At this point, I feel like those of us who continue to create our own genders, I'm not one of those. Let's clarify. I am pretty much as close to binary trans woman as it gets, but those of us out there who are creating new genders all the time, probably just doing so to disrupt the heteronormative society in which we live. They just want to make things uncomfortable for those who are strictly, rigidly binary in their gender presentation. And that's great. We should encourage that. The departure of Gladys Berejiklian as Premier will also have knock-on impacts when it comes to National Cabinet and Australia's COVID-19 response. The outgoing Premier has been one of the strongest advocates of living with COVID. Yeah, does anyone remember the speech she gave where she said, "People are gonna die," basically? Great premiering there, Gladys. With New South Wales' ambitious reopening plan closely monitored by other states. The relationship between the New South Wales government and the federal government has at times been tested. However, Ms Berejiklian has also been a strong ally for Prime Minister Scott Morrison in National Cabinet, with the state taking the largest share of hotel-quarantined international arrivals throughout the pandemic. Yes, some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I am willing to make. Dominic Perrottet and Rob Stokes are the two frontrunners to replace her, with the Treasurer understood to have the backing of the majority of the Liberal Party caucus. We're going to talk about Dominic Perrottet next, I think, and then we'll come to John Barilaro. Professor Jackson believes the Perrottet premiership could see the state diverge from its current COVID response. Stokes has said that he will stick very much to the reopening timeline, he said. But Perrottet has always been a let-it-rip kind of guy and a free market person who may well want to bring forward the timeline on the reopening of New South Wales. That could have its own ramifications for the health service and for people's lives. Alright, let's talk about Dominic Perrottet, because I really do not like this guy for many, many reasons. Meet Dom Perrottet, the Conservative Catholic and father of 6. It's a vagina, not a clown car, Dominic. Who will be New South Wales' next Premier? Well, who will be is, anyway, self-identifies as far right. Living with COVID, libertarian talking point. I want to open up, but I can't say that out loud without a lot of blowback. Or with a lot of blowback. A man with a big family and strong ideals around freedom. That's basically a dog whistle at this point. Meet Dominic Perrottet, the man who is set to take New South Wales' top job at a critical time. Mr. Perrottet has secured a deal that will see him become the state's 46th Premier and Gladys Berejiklian's successor. He looks like a nerd. Sorry, anyway. Minister for Western Sydney, Stuart Ayres, will become Deputy Liberal Leader, and Environment Minister Matt Keane will become Treasurer. The party will hold an official vote on Tuesday, which the ABC understands will be a formality. Mr. Perrottet will take the helm just as Greater Sydney and its surrounds prepare to reopen for fully vaccinated people on October 11 after more than 100 days of COVID-19 lockdown. The timing is far from ideal, but Mr. Perrottet has emphasised his hope and optimism about leading the state through uncharted waters. Last year, Mr. Perrottet was widely criticised for his handling of the $38 billion state-run insurance scheme iCare, which is supposed to look after millions of workers when they get sick or injured on the job. It emerged the troubled agency, set up by Mr. Perrottet in 2015, had lost more than $3 billion.
Welcome, friends.
Welcome, Kiara and friends. Despite cutting benefits to thousands of injured workers. Sorry, I'm a jock, so I look at nerds and I think that guy needs a punch. Anyway, I'm not serious, I'm joking. Let's throw some lights on. How was your stream? Where is my Thingo app? Bam! There we go. Hello, nerds! We're looking at Dominic Perrottet, who is this guy. All of those kids are his, because he won't stop treating his wife's vagina like a cornfield and plowing it constantly. Anyway, how was your stream? Tell us all about it. What were you getting up to tonight? In that photo, he looks like he's in a perpetual state of eating a really sour warhead and trying and failing not to make a face. Oh, fuck. Anyway, goddamn. Yeah, punch nerds consensually. How was your stream? What did you get up to? Tell us all about it. We are running, you're kidding, third of 12 kids himself, 6 kids by him. Jesus Christ, these people have... Holy shit. This is some white supremacist shit. You know that, right? You folks realize that the constant churning out of children, that's a white supremacist thing. That's a Christian white supremacist thing. They're trying to prevent white erasure or whatever the fuck. They're trying to prevent the browns going to overpopulate us or whatever their wild racist rhetoric is. That's what it is. Anyway. Encourage gender creation to push new ideas into mainstream media. I mean, hell, why not? The Quiverful movement, yeah. Talked about how Trix Rabbit was getting a bad rap and should eat Frosted Flakes. Saying not to compare yourself to other people, it's not worth it. True. Don't compare yourself to me, I'm too perfect. Anyway, these people have nothing to do in their lives other than pump out kids. Well, clearly to control the interests of many other people as well is one of their main things. Anyway, let's get back to it. Basically, yeah, like they're trying to... I forget where I was reading it, but it was with regards to abortion, right? And why there are so many people in conservative positions who are so staunchly against abortion. And the reason was quite explicitly that they want to make sure, like, even though, you know, restricting abortion does affect POC communities as well, but they want to restrict abortion so that white women, or white people with wombs, but generally speaking, from the conservative viewpoint, white women, are forced to churn out more children to maintain the sanctity of the white race, or whatever it is. Because they're legitimately scared of being bred out, which is hilarious given how often... Well, it's not hilarious, it's actually rather unsettling. But, you know, the only word I can think of in this circumstance is hilarious given how, especially if we consider First Nations people here in Australia, and how the... not the White Australia policy, but the other thing where the colonials were trying... The colonizers were trying to breed out indigenous people like 100 years ago. It's a whole thing. Assimilation policy, that's it. I know these things, but stolen generation. I know these things, but I don't have the words to... My mind can only hold so much information at a time. Then I have to dig through it to remember. One of the two streamers who inspired you to do just chatting. Awesome. Hell yes. Okay, let's go. A New South Wales parliamentary inquiry into the scandal-plagued organisation was last year told the wife of former iCare chief executive John Nagel was paid $800,000 over 3 years after being awarded a contract without a tender. Mr. Peritet, 39, has been front and centre of the New South Wales Liberal Party since becoming Treasurer and Deputy Leader in 2017. He is part of the Liberals' right faction, which is considered less dominant in New South Wales, and I hope that continues. I'm so fucking sick of right-wingers. Anyway, I'm trying to be tolerant, but, you know, tolerance paradox. We should talk about that again. This may mean he faces more challenges in Parliament than his moderate predecessors, Ms. Berejiklian, Mike Baird, and Barry O'Farrell. Growing up in West Pennant Hills in the Hills District of Sydney, Mr. Peritet was one of 13 children, not 12, 13. His family ideals are fierce, and he went on to have 6 of his own children with wife Helen. There's a flex for you. Gladys moderate, I know, right? In 2019, Mr. Peritet voted against decriminalising abortion. Of course he did. As a child, he attended the Roman Catholic school Redfield College in Dural. The school's chaplain is an Opus Dei priest. What does that mean? What does that mean? Formerly known as the Prelature of the Holy Cross and Opus Dei, is an institution of the Catholic Church. I like how that comes up as transphobic in Shinigami eyes. Which teaches that everyone is called to holiness and that ordinary life is a path to sanctity. Right, okay. I don't know what that means, but anyway. Oh, that's right there. Opus Dei is recognized as part of the Catholic Church and has historically been accused of secrecy, elitism, and misogyny. Could you be shocked? But Mr. Peritet has never shied away from making his faith public, which is terrifying for a politician, or terrifying for us looking at a politician. Last year, he spoke about how his devout Catholic beliefs have had a fundamental influence on his work in politics. Yay! Cool. I think having a Christian faith is a part of who I am and inspires me to make a difference wherever I go. A difference which means criminalizing abortion. Anyway, unlike the rest of the Catholic Church, a sect of the Catholic Church that is so secretive if people are asked if they are a member, they must publicly deny it. Oh, so like the whole thing of like if you ask a cop, if they're a cop, an undercover cop, if they're a cop, they have to tell you, but they actually don't. Where did that rumor come from? Mr. Peritet graduated from Sydney University with degrees in commerce and law, and worked as a solicitor in banking, restructuring, and insolvency law. Like Ms. Berejiklian, he was heavily involved in student politics and served as a president of the New South Wales Young Liberals. In 2011, at age 28, Mr. Peritet won the very safe Liberal seat of Castle Hill, but in 2015 successfully stood for the electorate of Hawkesbury. In his inaugural speech to Parliament in 2011, he said he would lead based on the 4 ideals of sacrifice, generosity, freedom, and opportunity. Knox probably said that, yeah. Yeah, he's a lawyer. Great, awesome. I believe in freedom because it is only by exercising freedom that individuals can develop the habits of generosity, hard work, fairness, and concern for others, he said. I believe that these habits have made our country great and are ultimately the foundation for the pursuit of the good life. You cannot do good without striving to be good. Right. And then there's this post here, which we're going to get into. Mr. Paratet is the founder of the Hills St. Vincent de Paul Young Adults Program and has served on the Hills Australia Day Committee. Now, this is interesting. In a 2016 post on his official Facebook account, Mr. Paratet praised Donald Trump's election as US president, describing it as a victory for the people who have been taken for granted by the elites. Does he not realize who Donald Trump is? Some people seem surprised by Donald Trump's success in the US election, but this result is a victory for people who have been taken for granted by the elites in the political establishment for too long. There is a silent majority, a forgotten people, who feel like the values they hold dear are no longer being represented by the political class. Yet because you guys are conservative, regressive fuckwits, and people want to move forward as a society, not backward. In fact, these values and the people who hold them are looked upon with contempt. If you stand for free speech, you are not a bigot. If you ever need to use the argument of free speech, you're a bigot. If you question man-made climate change, you are not a skeptic. What does... The science speaks for itself, man. Like, why are you questioning the science that some of these people love to faff on about? If you support stronger borders, you are not a racist. If you want a plebiscite on same-sex marriage, you are not a homophobe. There was no need for a plebiscite. The country overwhelmingly voted in favor of same-sex marriage. There was never a need for a plebiscite. If you love your country, you are not an extremist. It generally means you're a white supremacist, though. These are mainstream values that people should be free to articulate without fear or ridicule or persecution of the left, by the left. Yeah, the plebiscite was a waste of money. $141 million. It's time for a new political conversation that reflects the concerns of everyday people. It's time for a conservative spring. Fucking hell, dude. I really hate his face. Anyway, Mr. Paratet served as the Minister for Finance under former Premier Baird in 2014, and his portfolio was expanded to include property and innovation. In the lead-up to the 2019 election, the left, the amorphous blob known as the left, Mr. Paratet tried to take back the seat of Castle Hill and even nominated for pre-selection, a controversial move that upset the ministerial colleague Ray Williams, who held the seat. Mr. Paratet wanted to be based in a seat closer to his home, and his decision sparked a civil war within Liberal ranks. He eventually backed down and instead was pre-selected for the seat of Epping, which he still holds. Most recently, Mr. Paratet has been one of the architects of the JobSaver program and pushed back against the federal government when they scrapped JobKeeper benefits just as the Delta outbreak began to take hold in New South Wales. His conversations with Prime Minister Scott Morrison were said to have been particularly heated during his repeated calls for JobKeeper to be reinstated. Mr. Paratet has been a part of the crisis cabinet making the all-important decisions about managing COVID-19 and has committed to a strong job recovery. In 2020, we lost close to 300,000 jobs in this state, and we recovered every single one of them, plus 30,000 more, and we will do it again, he said while announcing his run for the top job. How's the head? And you mean the headache, not the girl kneeling under your desk. Really? The headache's okay. Thank you for the hydration. I took some Panadol. Getting some anything I don't like is communism vibe. Yeah, right? Right? He says the state's long-awaited reopening will still go ahead despite the shock leadership changes. What we want to is... Fucking hell. What we want to make sure is that we continue to focus on the people of our state who are going through a difficult time, he said. That recovery package is in its final throes and it's pretty much finished. What it's focused on is stimulating the economy through summer. Mr. Paratet is expected to lead with an economy-first mantra, but will take over as Premier just as the state's health system is expected to be under the most pressure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I know this is a time of challenge for our state, but I have complete hope and optimism that New South Wales is in a very good place. Excuse me. Editor's note for October 4, 2021, which is today. An earlier version of the story claimed Redfield College was run by Opus Dei priests. Its chaplain is an Opus Dei priest. It also described Opus Dei as a sect of the Catholic Church. It is in fact a prelature of the Catholic Church. What's the fucking difference? Anyway, there's that to think about. And I don't know if there's an article about Rob Stokes, but you know. Anyway, economy first, old people can die for the economy. Pretty much. Elderly people are greatly devalued in modern society, in Western society, in Australian society. Remember the debacle relatively recently, in the past few years at least, about, what was it called? Well, we don't need the Facebook post anymore. What was it called? Jesus. Where they were trying to raise the retirement age to an unreasonably high age. Like 75 or 80 or something like that. Be right back right here, Ziwa. Phage, I can't tell what the... Oh, it's a banhammer. Is it a banhammer? I think it is. Yeah, okay. It comes up in normal chat, but in my chat over here, it doesn't show up properly. What's this? Okay, let's have a look. What else is there? There's more here. There is more here. Let's see. Enjoy that look, Kiara. Okay, so Mendes' call to ICAC over Gladys Berejiklian's ex-boyfriend, Daryl Maguire. So we're just going through all the news we have on this topic at the moment. 2 New South Wales cabinet ministers have been summoned to appear before the state's corruption watchdog and give evidence over the activities of Daryl Maguire and a significant grant he obtained with the help of Gladys Berejiklian. Someone got the MiG 114 bonk. Why didn't it come up the first time? Oh, the exclamation mark. Question mark, sorry. That would have fucked up the code. Deputy Premier John Barilaro and Jobs Minister Stuart Ayres have been given notice to attend private hearings with the ICAC, the Independent Commission Against Corruption, whose examinations into the former New South Wales Liberal MP restarted this month. The sessions are being held via video link while the agency's premises remain closed. Mr. Barilaro, one of several ministers who was ordered in May to surrender paperwork and documents to the ICAC's investigators, provided his evidence to the agency this month. It is unclear when Mr. Ayres will appear as a witness. Do any of these articles cover the involvement of friendly Geordies? Is there an article that involves... Because that's a pretty significant part of the discussion around John Barilaro in particular. His particular investigation into Barilaro is... He and his team's investigation probably contributed to this. But yeah, unsurprisingly, mainstream journalism will not address these things. Anyway, Mr. Barilaro, one of several ministers, we already read that bit. There is no suggestion of any wrongdoing by either Mr. Barilaro or Mr. Ayres, only that they are assisting the ICAC with its inquiry into Mr. Maguire. Both ministers declined to comment. What happened with Barilaro? He's retiring or resigning or something, and there's a lot that's been going on with him, honestly. So he's resigned, Berejiklian has resigned, and one other guy whose name escapes me. Is it this guy? Stuart Ayres, or is it... No, the Transport Minister. The New South Wales Premier's Office, the Deputy of Premier and Cabinet, New South Wales Treasury, the New South Wales Treasurer's Office, and the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment all received similar notices to produce documents of relevance to the investigation. Can I read? They're Braille symbols. They do not exist in ASCII. Oh, okay. An ICAC spokeswoman said the Commission declines to make any remarks. Summoning 2 high-ranking members of Ms. Berejiklian's government marks an escalation in the agency's inquiries and strongly suggests other ministers connected to the multi-million-dollar grant will be called to provide further assistance. Ms. Berejiklian gave evidence during private ICAC hearings in August last year, and again during public hearings 2 months later, where it was revealed she had been in a close personal and years-long relationship with Mr. Maguire, which was kept secret from family members, friends, and colleagues. Asked on Sunday during her final daily COVID-19 press briefing whether she had been summoned to appear before the ICAC, Ms. Berejiklian declined to answer the question, saying she had nothing to add on that matter. It would be inappropriate to comment on those ongoing investigations, and I have nothing further to say, she said. In the past, Ms. Berejiklian and her staff have made a point of categorically rejecting any notion that she may be a target of ICAC inquiries. The Premier is not and has never been the subject of an ICAC investigation, her office told The Australian on August 18th. But a week ago, this position appeared to shift. Asked if she was under investigation, Ms. Berejiklian said it was a matter for the agency. It would be inappropriate for anyone to comment publicly on that work, she said. The ICAC investigation into Mr. Maguire, codenamed Operation Keppel, which we have a thing for here. Let me bring this up really quickly. Here we go. It's this one. further Operation Keppel public inquiry. You can read over that in a moment. Originally focused on allegations of misconduct by the former Wagga Wagga MP between 2012 and 2018. The investigation was scheduled to wind up last December, but was extended for further investigative steps. These were understood to involve inquiries into a $5.5 million funding grant Mr. Maguire procured for the Australian Clay Target Association, located in his electorate of Wagga Wagga during 2017. An attempt to secure this grant in 2016 failed, but documents obtained by New South Wales Parliament show a second attempt the following year using an updated business case and the oversight of Ms. Berejiklian, who at the time was New South Wales Premier and in a relationship with Mr. Maguire, was successful. Ms. Berejiklian has previously said she did not declare her relationship with Mr. Maguire under the Ministerial Code of Conduct because she did not consider it to be of sufficient status. Okay. Email correspondence between senior department officials, also obtained by New South Wales Parliament, spoke of Ms. Berejiklian's heightened interest in the association's grant application. So that's Daryl Maguire there, I suppose. They noted that she had requested a review of the ACTA's business case after it initially failed to meet key benchmarks. Mr. Ayres met Mr. Maguire and ACTA President Robert Nugent in 2017 to inspect the Wagga Wagga location where the grant funding was intended to be used for the construction of a function centre. Mr. Ayres, now the Jobs Minister, was Minister for Sport at the time. Developments in the ICAC's investigation have caused discomfort within the state government, naturally. One of Ms. Why can't I read her name? I know how to say it. One of Ms. Berejiklian's senior colleagues told The Australian that the New South Wales Premier would more than likely ride out any adverse findings made about her relationship with Mr. Maguire should they arise. Others remain less certain, and The Australian has established that contingency planning has been discussed among some influential MPs, including supporters of the New South Wales Premier, to prepare for any circumstance in which Ms. Berejiklian decides to stand aside. Next January will mark her 5th year as leader. The Australian first reported on the expanded ICAC investigation in May, when the watchdog began delivering so-called Section 22 notices to officials. The notices compel recipients to physically deliver items to ICAC officers and are governed by secrecy provisions that prevent general disclosure. There's that. Goodness gracious me, there's a lot in this. Fozzie Bears from Wagga Wagga. Wait, seriously? I can't tell if you're joking. Are you serious? Hang on, I need it. No way. Oh, Waka Waka. Okay. It's Waka Waka is Fozzie Bear's catchphrase. Okay, there we go. Funny. Clever, you got me. Okay. It's late and words are hard. Yeah, that's true. Plus all the work the media did to keep her in We've All Made Mistakes in Love. Yeah, I don't think most of us have gotten involved in major corruption scandals as a result of love, Ms. Berejiklian. I'm just saying, I've never done anything like that. Section 22 notice covers all relevant documents, both digital and physical, and any and all assorted media. There we go. So, I mean, well, you know, what's the legislation around T for T in New South Wales? Is that allowed? Because that could be considered to be like, I mean, it's not corruption, but maybe, you know, done a little thievery in your relationship. I know exactly what you mean. Okay, let's have a look at this further Operation Keppel public inquiry. The New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, will hold a further public inquiry in Operation Keppel from 10 a.m. on Monday the 18th of October 2021. It's too hot. It literally fucking is, though. It's really warm today. The Commission is investigating whether between 2012 and 2018, the honorary Gladys Berejiklian Member of Parliament engaged in conduct that is that what that means? Member of Parliament? I think it does. Constituted or involved a breach of public trust by exercising public functions in circumstances where she was in a position of conflict between her public duties and private interest as a person who was in a personal relationship with the then New South Wales Member of Parliament, Mr. Daryl Maguire, in connection with grant funding promised and or awarded to the Australian Clay Target Association Incorporated in 2016/2017 and grant funding promised and or awarded to the Riverina Conservatorium of Music in Wagga Wagga in 2018 and or fucking run-on sentences in legalese. Jesus, fuck me Christ. Constituted or involved the partial exercise of any of her official functions in conjunction with granting funding promised and or awarded to the Australian Clay Target Association Incorporated in 2016-2017, grant funding promised and or awarded to the Riverina Conservatorium of Music in Wagga Wagga in 2018, and or constituted or involved the dishonest or partial exercise of any of her official functions and or a breach of public trust by refusing to exercise her duty pursuant to Section 11 of the Independent Commission Against Corruption Act 1988 to report any matter that she suspected on reasonable grounds concerned or may concern corrupt conduct in relation to the conduct of Mr. Darryl Maguire, and or was liable to allow or encourage the occurrence of corrupt conduct by Mr. Maguire. Fucking hell. Welcome to Legal Speak. Legalese rule number 1, always use run-on sentences. I mean, I've got the music going, it's just very low. The Commission is also investigating whether between 2012 and 2018, or 2012 and August 2018, Mr. Maguire engaged in conduct that involved a breach of public trust by using his public office, involving his duties as a member of New South Wales Parliament, and the use of parliamentary resources to improperly gain a benefit for himself. Gateway International / Gateway in... That's horrendous. I fucking hate that so much. Gateway Proprietary Limited and Associated Persons. The general scope and purpose of the public inquiry is to gather evidence relevant to the matters being investigated for the purpose of determining the matters referred to in Section 13.2 of the ICAC Act. You love this swipe typing thing? Heck, that's awesome. Hell yes. The same thing with economics. They even have a term for it in Econobabble. The Commission has decided the public inquiries will be conducted as far as practicable remotely via audiovisual link, AVL, until there is a change in the current COVID-19 public health orders. Only those whose presence on Commission premises is deemed essential for the effective conduct of the public inquiry will be permitted on site. Gateway, mateway. Members of the public and media will therefore not be permitted to attend the premises for the course of the Operation Keppel public inquiry. There is further information in the public inquiry protocol on the Commission's website. MS Teams is the AVL technology that the Commission will use to conduct the public inquiry remotely. The Commission will live stream the MS Teams proceedings via its website, icac.newsouthwales.gov.au. The Commission will also upload exhibits, provided they are not subject to non-publication orders, transcripts, and witness lists to the website. Updates will be provided throughout the course of the inquiry via the ICAC Twitter account. Maybe I should follow them, but my following on Twitter is already at 1312. I'm at 1312 following on Twitter, so I'm trying to keep it there. Anyway. Assistant Commissioner, the Honorary Ruth McCall, AOSC, will preside at the public inquiry. I'm not sure what AOSC means. Counsel assisting the Commission will be Mr. Scott Robertson and Mr. Alex Brown. It is expected that the inquiry will continue for approximately 10 days. A witness list for the first week of the public inquiry will be published closer to the commencement day of the proceedings, along with further information about how to access the live stream. The Commission will also advise if there are changes to the public health orders that may affect the conduct of the inquiry. They should stream it on Twitch so we can get some hype trains going. Can we get some legal hype trains going? Heck yes. Anyway. Miss Teams? I think I've heard of her. Use MS Teams for work since you've been in lockdown. There we go. It's just legal titles. Yeah. Legal. Maybe I should go into political science. Fuck. Should I do that? Should I go into poli-sci and become one of those people? Okay, so there's a ton of other articles relating to Gladys Berejiklian, relating to... There's an article on New South Wales. There's an article on Sydney Morning Herald about, I think it's an opinion piece, New South Wales must do better than Dominic Perrottet as Premier. Because, yeah, like we already read about him, he is a very much the same kind of character as Scott Morrison, who believed he was handpicked by God to become Prime Minister. And that just fucking terrifies me. People should govern in a secular fashion. We should not have people who are in positions of parliamentary power who govern based solely on the fact that they have explicit religious ties. It's a scary situation. Set up some spicy prediction gambles on the verdict. And there's also this that I wanted to watch really quickly, and I might, maybe you should run for office, maybe. There's an interview here Expires Monday, 31st of August. What does that mean? Anyway. Handpicked by God, and a $90 billion donation from Clive Palmer. Yeah, exactly. There's an interview with Ed Husick, the Shadow Industry Minister Ed Husick, on Insiders that we could watch. Also, I do want to wrap up on one thing, one non-Ozpol thing before we go. So how about we watch this? Then I'm gonna end a little bit early tonight, I think. I'm not sure. Actually, I might call it on the Ozpol stuff and just wrap up on something that I want to talk about, because I'm a little bit tired and my I think I'm not gonna waste my time with the Insiders interview. I've got a lot of links here, but I'm not gonna go through all of them because there's so many. So I'm gonna just do one last thing that's particularly relevant to me, because Elden Ring is gonna be out in the next 3 months, roughly. What is it? January 22? I think it was. I can't fucking wait for Elden Ring. You have no idea. Anyway, Elden Ring difficulty and gameplay details revealed at TGS 2021. From Software staff Yasuhiro Kitao shared a new development update on Elden Ring at TGS 2021 and explained some gameplay details related to difficulty. And we've got this awesome new screenshot which shows us like this castle in the background. We've got some scenery. We've got what looks like the Erd Tree, but much smaller. I don't know what the dealio is there, but for those who don't know, Elden Ring has got like 4 open worlds basically that you can explore throughout the game. And then there's like dungeons at the end of those worlds, so to speak, that are where you fight like the major bosses of those areas. At any rate, I can't wait, and we've got this screenshot here which obviously outlines what looks like co-op by the look of things. Even though these phantoms here are orange, which is interesting, I wonder if the phantom system is going to change significantly from Dark Souls, Bloodborne, etc. Anyway, while Elden Ring was not featured directly at Tokyo Game Show, the Famitsu X Dengeki TGS 2021 stream on October 3rd featured Yasuhiro Kitao from Software, who shared some development updates and new details on the dark fantasy action JRPG. We translated everything below. In charge of promotion marketing, so Kitao is in charge of promotion marketing and production at From Software and regularly appears at events. You've definitely already spotted his cool hairstyle before. I don't know what he looks like. The discussion started early on in the stream, around 33 minutes in the stream. Okay, for around 10 minutes. The timestamp might be slightly off as the stream is currently still ongoing. Update now that the stream has ended. I've got a precise timestamp at 32:45. Okay, Elden Ring and its seamless open world. Yasuhiro Kitao started by explaining that Elden Ring is a typical From Software game with dark fantasy elements, but with several differences from Souls games. One of the novelties is how the game is open world and how it's seamlessly connected to several dungeons. You have small and medium-sized dungeons on the open world, like underground tunnels. And by the way, I was basing my statement before on stuff like that I'd heard from Souls creators like Lance McDonald and the like. And I think VaatiVidya specifically, Lance McDonald, and a bunch of other Souls creators were given access to like that 14 or 15 minute gameplay footage, pre-release footage, which has not been revealed to the public, which sucks, but anyway. And there are what he called legacy dungeons, which are huge castles and typical environments which also appear in Demon Souls and Dark Souls. One of the ways to enjoy the game is exploring the map and seamlessly discovering and entering areas like that. Players traverse the open world field using a horse called Rayma, so we actually have a name for it now, Ghost Horse, which you can summon anywhere using the whistle, except inside dungeons, naturally. The open world is huge and designed to be another source of danger, different from the sense of danger you'll get in dungeons, which adds to the fun. Kitao also touched on how the horse affects battles. For example, as seen in the gameplay trailer, when fighting giant enemies such as dragons, you'd rather be on horseback, but in narrower areas, it's best to be on foot. I guarantee you there are going to be challenge runners who are going to be doing these big boss battles without the horse. I dare say it doesn't force you to use the horse, it's just highly recommended. Next, Kitao explained that Elden Ring has no indications like go to this dungeon next, you're free to explore and go wherever you want. That sounds pretty cool. Sounds really dangerous, but sounds really cool. Though sometimes you might be completely lost as where to go next, so there are features that will help in those times like maps. Kitao also explained that unlike past Souls games, you can find pieces of maps in the open world. You can then open the map and set objectives so they appear as pillars of light to guide you. That's pretty cool. Horseless mode. I guarantee you are going to see horseless mode runs. Horseless mode speed runs. Kitao said he'd be lying if he stated Elden Ring was easy, but it's not like the game is hard just to be hard. It's designed so you can feel a sense of accomplishment. There's that word. Remember the sense of accomplishment thing from Reddit regarding... Was it Battlefront? I can't remember. Anyway. When succeeding in doing something or discovering something, and the high difficulty is one of the ways to achieve that. However, there are several systems that make the game easy to help players, like being able to summon allies. There's also stealth like in Sekiro that lets you backstab and one-shot enemies to avoid harder frontal assaults. Yeah, pride and accomplishment, the sense of pride and accomplishment for unlocking skins or something, wasn't it? And if the dungeon you've just reached is too difficult, you'll always be able to find easier dungeons to level up first, which has always been the case. Kitao ended the segment by thanking the fans who didn't forget about Elden Ring, even when they went silent on the game for 2 years. Dude, the From Software community is dedicated to this game like nothing else. They always have been, though. That's the thing. Like the From Software community, the From Software fan base, they're just like obsessed with whatever the next game is. Because From Software does games like no one else. And only revealed gameplay for the first time at Summer Games Fest in June 2021. He added that the development is progressing smoothly and they'll try their utmost to answer our expectations. And then there's like Elden Ring launching on January 21. There we go. Cannot fucking wait, mate. Jesus Christ. Press X to pride and accomplishment. It was more than you needed to splurge $60 if you wanted to unlock Darth Vader. Yeah, pretty much. So they made the requirement to unlock Darth Vader like really, really high within the game's mechanics. Like you had to grind like crazy. And then that was their justification for adding a microtransaction to buy Darth Vader or something. Which was dumb. That's dumb. That's stupid. That's fucking stupid. Anyway. Anyway. That's all I've got to say on that. Anyway, I wanted to end on something a little bit nicer, a little bit more fun. So, you got suggested Twitter topic, Mads Mikkelsen. I'm gonna call it a bit early tonight, because quite frankly, I am a little bit exhausted. My voice is done and dusted. I think what we're gonna do is gonna go raid Noom, who is playing some Valheim. I want to play some Valheim again. I haven't played Valheim in a bit. It's quite nice, quite a fun game, quite a chill game. But yeah, we're going to go say hi to Noom. I'll be back tomorrow, usual time. I'm experimenting with perhaps the idea of streaming only 3 hours again, because honestly, I'm just exhausted lately for numerous reasons. So I kind of want to stream a little bit less. And I don't know. That's it. I don't know. Anyway, this was your first stream of mine. Thank you so kindly for hanging out with us tonight, Zach. I hope you have a good one. I mean, this is weird. I don't know many just chatting or politics streamers. Well, Radhom is live at the moment. I could raid Radhom, but we raided Radhom recently. So we're going to go to a gaming stream. Going to go have a chill gaming stream. And I am going to, go vibe for a bit. I'm probably going to raid and run because I'm so tired. But anyway, thank you all folks for hanging out tonight. We'll be live at 8 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time, or Australian Eastern Daylight Time tomorrow. Because we're in daylight savings. So it's actually going to be AEDT tomorrow. At any rate, roughly 3 hours ago, but tomorrow. 21 hours-ish from now, I'll be live. Be kind to yourselves and each other. I love your faces. And I'll see you when I'm looking at you.